Chapter 776. Demonic Goo? Ji Tianqing, Kuan Wu, and the others immediately revealed puzzled expressions. They were quite puzzled. Long Yunshao suddenly thought of something and said, I have read in the history books that some ancient tribes in the southern wilderness have mastered the mysterious art of goo poison. It is said that those experts who have mastered the art of goo poison can silently plant goo poison in other people's bodies. Those who have been poisoned will be fine for a short period of time, but on a certain date, the poison will take effect and they will die. Divine Master, is this demonic goo similar to the art of goo poison? As the son of heaven, Long Yunshao had read many books since he was young. Of course, he was knowledgeable and had a good memory. Everyone stared at Divine Master Heiyu, waiting for him to explain. Divine Master Heiyu nodded slightly and said calmly, what the son of heaven said is true. Some ancient tribes in the southern wilderness have mastered the mysterious art of goo poison. It is a vicious secret art that can kill without leaving a trace. It is impossible to guard against it. These two demonic goo are similar to the mysterious art of goo poison. They are both planted in other people's bodies by the person who planted the goo. However, the art of goo poison mostly uses poison and venomous insects to take people's lives. These two demonic goo are not used to kill people, but to absorb the power of the flesh and soul. Divine Master Heiyu's words made Long Yunshao, Kuan Wu, and the rest change their expressions. Ji Tianqing frowned and muttered to himself, when the demonic emperor was injured by me, he absorbed the flesh and soul of the blood demon king to recover his strength and escape. My guess was right. These two demonic venomous insects are related to the demon emperor. Thinking of this, his expression became more serious. He asked Divine Master Heiyu, Divine Master, how does this demonic goo absorb the power of the flesh and soul? Divine Master Heiyu nodded slightly and said in a serious tone, this demonic goo is very mysterious and very rare. Only the experts of the monarch mansion and the various imperial courts know about it. The person who planted the goo would plant the demonic goo in the young talents of the various aristocratic families. The power of the young talents' flesh and soul would become the nourishment for the demonic goo. Moreover, the person who was poisoned by the demonic goo would have a great change in temperament. They would go on a killing spree and kill the innocent. When they killed innocent people, the demonic venomous insects would devour the flesh, blood, and soul of the innocent people who died unjustly. It was precisely because of this that the flesh and blood of those who were cruelly killed would melt and turn into a pile of white bones. The demonic goo absorbed the power of flesh, blood, and soul. As it grew stronger, it also provided a steady stream of power to the demonic goo master. Therefore, the goal of the person who planted these demonic goo was to absorb flesh, blood, and soul essence to quickly increase their strength. After hearing Divine Sovereign Heiyu's explanation, Long Yunshao, Kunwu, and the other three revealed expressions of shock. The poison goo actually has such an effect? Isn't this too unbelievable? The demonic goo can actually help Master increase his strength quickly? What an unimaginable and unheard of demonic means. Ji Tianqing frowned. After thinking for a moment, his expression suddenly changed. Normal heaven origin stage experts would not be able to detect such a vicious demonic parasite. To be able to use such a vicious method and desperately want to recover his strength, the ancient demonic emperor. I have seen the power and aura of these demonic goo on the demonic emperor before. These demonic goo must be his. He fled back to his nest in the northern desert after suffering great losses and has been desperately trying to recover his strength. He must have planted these demonic goo to recover his strength. Long Yunshao, Yunyao, Kuan Wu, and Fox Princess were all stunned. Then their expressions changed drastically. The ancient demonic emperor? If he is the owner of the demonic goo, then we are in big trouble. Damn it! The young talents of the big families have all been poisoned and many innocent people have been killed. We have to solve this as soon as possible. Otherwise, the ancient demonic emperor will be able to use the demonic goo to continuously absorb energy and quickly recover his strength. Fox Princess did not speak. After pondering in silence for a moment, she shook her head and said, Ji Tianqing, your analysis makes sense. These demonic goo might belong to the ancient demonic emperor. But if that is the case, then hasn't the ancient demonic emperor already infiltrated Zhongzhou City? He is a notorious demonic emperor. He actually planted demonic goo all over Zhongzhou City. Isn't he afraid that his whereabouts will be exposed and he will be besieged by various powerful figures? Before Ji Tianqing could speak, Divine Master Blackfeather explained, Fox Princess, the owner of the demonic goo is very likely to be the ancient demonic emperor. However, he does not need to come to Zhongzhou City personally to plant demonic goo. He can order the demonic kings under his command to bring his demonic goo to Zhongzhou City and choose targets to plant on. This way, he can continue to recover his strength while hiding in his nest in the northern desert. This is the strange and magical part of the demonic goo. Fox Princess's eyes widened in disbelief. How is this possible? How can there be such an unimaginable method in this world? Yun Yao's expression was cold as she said in a serious tone, The ancient demonic emperor is a demonic emperor from 1,000 years ago. How can we imagine how despicable and sinister his methods are? Now is not the time to discuss this. Moreover, we don't know how many demonic clans have infiltrated the city and are planting demonic goo everywhere. The most important thing right now is to find those demonic clans that are secretly planting demonic goo and get rid of these demonic goo as soon as possible. Ji Tianqing and Long Yunshao both nodded in agreement. That's right. The demonic clans are secretly causing trouble. We have to stop them with all our might. Otherwise, as more and more people are planted with demonic goo, Zhongzhou City will fall into chaos sooner or later. We have to get rid of these demonic goo as soon as possible. We cannot let the demonic emperor use this chance to recover his strength. Everyone was getting closer and closer to the truth. Their hearts were filled with anger and hatred for a common enemy. Divine Master Blackfeather also frowned and said in a heavy tone, That damned ancient demonic emperor. We did not eliminate him, but he still dares to send people to stir up trouble in Zhongzhou City. If he recovers his peak strength, it will be bad. Everyone thought that the demonic emperor would need at least 10 years to recover his strength after fleeing back to his nest in the northern desert. Only then would he be able to stir up trouble in the continent. However, no one expected that in less than a year, the demonic emperor would start stirring up trouble again. Even though he was in the northern desert, he was able to use the demonic goo to create havoc in Zhongzhou City. It was obvious that the demonic emperor was ready to make a move. He was going to stir up a storm of blood. Thinking of this, everyone's hearts sank. A layer of haze silently covered their hearts. At this time, Divine Master Blackfeather looked at everyone with a dignified gaze and ordered in a deep voice, The 5 of you, listen to my orders. Continue to investigate this matter in Zhongzhou City. You must find those demonic clans that have infiltrated the city and planted demonic goo everywhere, and kill them all. I will inform the City Lord's mansion and have them assist you in the investigation. Chapter 777. Ji Tianqing, Kun Wu, and the others naturally obeyed Divine Master He Yu's order. Everyone acknowledged Divine Master He Yu's order and left the Black Feather Palace with a bow. As for the 2 demonic insects they found, Divine Master He Yu didn't destroy them and kept them carefully. He wanted to study them carefully and see if he could find any clues and ways to restrain them from the demonic insects. Ji Tianqing, Kun Wu, and the others parted ways after leaving the Black Feather Palace. Kun Wu and Foxy moved together and continued to investigate the west district of Zhongzhou City. Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunshao were still investigating the south district. The 3 of them flew across the sky as fast as lightning and discussed their next plan while hurrying on their way. Long Yunshao suggested, We've already been to the Tang family. Do you want to go to the other 2 families? Yun Yao nodded in agreement. Since we know that the demonic insects are the cause of the changes, let's go to those 2 families and remove the demonic insects. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a while. Then, he said in a deep voice, We'll go to those 2 families first. After removing the demonic insects, we'll find a way to find the culprit. The culprit's target is very clear. They're targeting the young elites of the prestigious families. There are 7 first-rate aristocratic families in the South District, and 3 of them are already in trouble. If the culprit continues to sow demonic insects, it's very likely that they'll target the other 4 families. We can wait for them to come. Long Yunshao and Yun Yao thought for a while and immediately nodded in agreement after hearing his idea and plan. Not long after, the 3 of them left the Monarch Mansion and returned to Zhongzhou City. The 3 of them quickly rushed to the South District and began to carry out their plan. They first went to the other 2 families and found the young elites who had been implanted with demonic insects and removed the demonic insects from their bodies. With the previous experience, Ji Tianqing's removal of the demonic insects was much easier and smoother. He used the mysterious black hole in his right palm to suck the demonic insects out and sealed them in a special magic treasure box. At noon, the three of them completed the first step of their plan. They removed the demonic insects from the three young elites of the two families. Then, the three of them split up and went to their respective families. Yun Yao went to the wealthy Xia family on Lulua Street alone. She secretly observed the Xia family's movements and probed for the aura of the demon clan. Long Yunshao rushed to the wealthy Qin family and secretly snuck into the Qin family to search for traces of the devil race. He was waiting for the person who had planted the goo worms to appear. As for Ji Tianqing, he went to the powerful Zheng family. The Zheng family's mansion was called Upright Star Court. It was a mansion with a vast terrain and a quiet and secluded illusion. Ji Tianqing used a little trick to disguise himself as a guard and successfully sneaked into Zhengxing Court, silently observing the Zheng family's situation. The Zheng family was a martial arts aristocratic family with a heritage of more than 600 years. Not only were they flourishing with many descendants, but they had also produced many martial arts geniuses. Among this generation of young disciples, there were quite a few geniuses whose names shook Central Continent City. In the future, they would all have extraordinary accomplishments. After Ji Tianqing understood the situation, he felt that the Zheng family was in the most danger. It was very likely that they were the target of the demon clan. Therefore, he started his investigation from the Zheng family, searching for the demon clan that could have planted the goo worms. For the entire afternoon, Ji Tianqing disguised himself as a guard of the Zheng family and patrolled the mansion several times. He secretly used his spiritual sense to investigate, searching the entire Upright Star Court 3 times. He did not sense the aura of the demon clan, nor did he find anyone with a suspicious identity. Time quickly passed, and it was night time. There was no moon tonight. The stars in the sky were sparse and the light was dim. Under the curtain of night, the Upright Star Court was lit with specks of light. It was currently in a peaceful sleep. The 3,000 or so people of the Zheng family still did not know about the demon goo's rampage. They were completely unaware of the impending danger. Ji Tianqing didn't continue his patrol. Instead, he hid on top of a 1,000-feet-tall prayer tower, looking down at the entire Upright Star Garden. This prayer tower was the tallest building in Upright Star Court. He could overlook the entire area from the top of the tower. He could see all the important paths in the mansion. With his keen eyesight and lightning spirit eyes, he could clearly see the situation within 1,000 meters. He also had a clear understanding of the patrol teams in the mansion and the hidden sentries hidden in various secret locations. Unknowingly, the night passed. At dawn, Zhengxing Court became even quieter. Everything was calm and tranquil. Ji Tianqing observed from the prayer tower for an entire night. He did not sense anything out of the ordinary. He could not help but feel somewhat puzzled. There's actually nothing out of the ordinary? Could it be that I guessed wrong and the demon clan's target is not the Zheng family? Although he was puzzled, he was not discouraged. He patiently waited. He trusted his own intuition and judgment. Based on his understanding of the demon clan, he firmly believed that it would not be long before the demon clan attacked the Zheng family. Finally, the darkness before dawn was about to pass, and light was about to appear on the horizon. Ji Tianqing slightly relaxed his vigilance and prepared to leave the prayer tower. But at this moment, his lightning spirit eyes suddenly caught a glimpse of a black shadow on a bluestone path in the southwest corner of the Upright Star Court. There were no patrolling guards in the southwest corner of the Zheng family. That bluestone path was also a blind spot. It could avoid the detection of the guards and hidden sentries. Ji Tianqing immediately became alert. He realized that there was a problem. He did his best to activate the power of his lightning spirit eyes and looked at the bluestone path from several hundred meters away. Although the black shadow was extremely fast, moving very stealthily like a ghost in the dark night, Ji Tianqing still caught a glimpse of it. However, Ji Tianqing caught sight of that figure and saw it clearly. That black figure was carrying something that looked like a long bag. Something strange. Ji Tianqing shouted in his mind. He hurriedly flew down from the prayer tower and toward the southwest corner of the mansion. After a few breaths, he arrived at the southwest corner of the Upright Star Court. He was only 100 meters away from the black shadow. At this moment, he could clearly see that the black shadow was a tall, middle-aged man wearing black night clothes. The black-clothed man was indeed carrying a long bag on his shoulder. From the shape of the bag, it was very likely that there was a person inside. The black-clothed man was not unfamiliar with the layout of the Upright Star Court. He cleverly avoided several hidden sentries and patrolling guards and quickly left the Upright Star Court. After leaving the Upright Star Court, the black-clothed man sped up and rushed toward the south. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing hurriedly released Qianyu and warned it. Qianyu, quickly go and inform Tianzi and Yao Yao that I've found a clue. I'll follow the black-clothed man first and leave marks along the way. You only need to pay attention to the marks I leave behind, and you can bring Tianzi and Yao Yao to follow me. After saying this, Ji Tianqing quietly flew into the sky and followed closely behind the black-clothed man. Chapter 778. Ji Tianqing followed closely behind the black-clothed man, leaving the city under the cover of night. That black-clothed man's speed was extremely fast, his movements were nimble, and he was also very vigilant. However, Ji Tianqing's strength was even stronger. Following behind him for 300 meters, he was not detected by him. When the two left Central State City, one in front and one behind, and entered the mountains of the southern suburbs, the sky was already bright. A new day had arrived. A faint red glow appeared on the horizon. The sun was about to rise. The mountains of the southern suburbs were uninhabited. The peaks of each mountain were shrouded in thick clouds. That black-clothed man unscrupulously sped up, passing through layers of clouds, flying into the depths of the mountains. Ji Tianqing followed unhurriedly, leaving behind special markings along the way. Through his observations along the way, he finally saw some clues. That black-clothed man's body shape and appearance did not look like a demon, but rather a human. Moreover, the black-clothed man flew at high speed, not revealing a trace of demonic qi. This discovery filled Ji Tianqing's heart with doubts, silently guessing, this guy is not a demon, but a human? Could it be that someone is colluding with the demon race, acting as a spy for them? No, this is impossible. No human would collude with the demon race, collude with them. Ji Tianqing was full of doubts, continuing to follow the black-clothed man, determined to figure out what was going on. Unknowingly, an hour passed. The black-clothed man flew over 400 li, entering the depths of the mountains, and landed on the peak of 1,000-zhang-tall mountain. He carried a gray-brown cloth bag on his shoulder, standing on the peak for a long time, vigilantly looking around. Seeing that there was nothing strange in the surroundings and no one appeared, he finally felt relieved, rushing towards a pile of rocks halfway up the mountain. He entered the pile of rocks, using a secret technique to open a formation. A dark cave entrance immediately appeared in the pile of rocks. He looked around a few times, then hurriedly entered the cave entrance, rushing into the cave like a gust of wind. And this scene was clearly seen by Ji Tianqing hiding in the shadows. After the black-clothed man entered the cave, he flew to the rocks and observed the entrance of the cave from a close distance. The entrance of the cave was not big, only 2 meters in radius. The cave was dark and gloomy, revealing a gloomy and cold aura. Ji Tianqing probed with his spiritual sense and found traces of devil qi surging in the cave. Looks like this is a demonic cave. I'll be able to figure out what's going on soon. This thought flashed through his mind, and his heart was filled with anticipation. Taking advantage of the fact that the protective formation at the entrance of the cave had yet to close, he hurriedly squeezed into the cave and rushed into the depths of the cave like a gust of wind. As soon as he entered the devil cave, a cold wind blew, and a thick bloody devil qi surrounded him. There was no light in the demonic cave. It was dark and damp, and it was suffused with an unpleasant smell of decay. Ji Tianqing released his spiritual sense and dived into the depths of the devil cave while using his spiritual sense to explore the surrounding situation. He could see that the structure of this devil cave was very simple. It should be a temporary hiding place built by the devil race experts. The winding passage extended into the belly of the mountain, and there weren't many forks or mazes. 15 minutes later, Ji Tianqing entered the depths of the devil cave and finally saw light. In front of him was a spacious cave with a radius of more than 50 meters. There were dozens of moonlight stones inlaid on the walls of the cave, emitting a hazy white light. The cave was filled with cold devil qi, which condensed into a large cloud of black fog, rolling in the air. Ji Tianqing hid at the entrance of the cave and opened his thunder spirit eyes to look into the cave. He immediately saw clearly that there was only one person in the cave. It was the man in black. The man in black returned to the devil cave and thought that he was safe, so he didn't hide his presence anymore. He put the cloth bag on his shoulder on the ground, stretched his arms and stretched his limbs. Then, he took out 2 medicinal pellets and swallowed them. He sat down on the ground to absorb the medicinal efficacy and recover his strength. When he started to cultivate, Ji Tianqing used his spiritual sense to detect that he was at the second level of the Sky Origin stage. A second-level Sky Origin stage expert isn't enough to be the king of a tribe. He's at most an elite devil general. This man is hiding in the devil cave, but there's no devil chi on him. How strange. What's going on? Ji Tianqing hid in the dark and observed silently. He was not in a hurry to show himself. He waited patiently for 30 minutes before the man in black finished his cultivation and recovered his strength. The man in black got up and opened the grayish-brown cloth bag. He took out a young man in a long brocade robe. The young man was in his early 20s. He was dressed luxuriously and had red lips and white teeth. He was obviously a young master from a wealthy family. This person was at the 8th level of the Origin core stage. He was obviously an elite disciple of the Zheng clan, a young master with a high status. However, young Master Zheng was in a coma and had lost consciousness. The man in black carried young Master Zheng and let out a sinister sneer. Tisk tsk. My 8 days of waiting in the Zheng clan were worth it. I've finally succeeded. Second young Master Zheng, your Zheng clan has a lot of experts. Your blood, flesh, and soul are all very strong. I'm really looking forward to your performance when you return to the Zheng clan. After he finished speaking, the man in black threw the young master into the ball of devil fog in the air. Swoosh! The unconscious young master flew into the devil fog and was immediately wrapped in it. He was suspended in the air. The devil fog surged and shrunk rapidly, forming a dark brown devil cocoon that wrapped the young master. The devil cocoon released strands of black fog that were like tentacles that pierced into the young master's body and began to transform and erode his body. The young master's body suddenly twisted and swayed. There were many bumps on his skin, as if there were little mice running through his flesh. The man in black kept waving his palm to release black fog and devil chi. He used some kind of secret technique to control the power of the devil cocoon. Unknowingly, 15 minutes had passed. The man in black finished casting the secret technique. The young master's body had also been transformed by the devil cocoon, and some slight changes had occurred. At this moment, the man in black took out a small black gourd from his spatial ring. The small gourd was the purple devil gourd that was unique to the northern desert. It only grew in the Devil Dao's holy land that was extremely dark and evil. Its material was very tough and could nurture various devils. This purple devil gourd was favored and loved by the devil clan's powerhouses. It could be used to nourish devils, and it could also be used to store devil chi or various kinds of blood, flesh, and soul. The man in black opened the purple devil gourd and grabbed a tiny purple devil worm from the gourd. The hideous purple devil worm was the devil goo that Ji Tianqing had seen before. However, this devil goo was extremely small, only the size of a fingernail. Chapter 779. Once that tiny demonic goo entered second young Master Zheng's body, second young Master Zheng would be finished. Next, he would definitely lose his sanity and humanity like Tang Shucheng and return to the Zheng family to kill. Ji Tianqing witnessed the man in black casting the spell and the process of planting the demonic goo. He finally understood everything. Since he had figured out how the demons planted the demonic goo, how could he let the same tragedy happen again? When the demonic goo flew toward the demonic cocoon and rushed toward second young Master Zheng excitedly, he finally made his move. He clasped his right index and middle fingers together to form a sword and pointed at the demonic goo. Whoosh! A golden sword ray the length of a chopstick appeared out of thin air. It carried an invincible power and flew 100 feet away in an instant, stabbing the demonic goo. The sharp sword ray instantly pierced the demonic goo and sent it flying more than 10 meters away, nailing it to the hard rock wall with a ding sound. The sword ray pierced a 3-inch deep hole in the dark brown rock wall, splashing out countless stone fragments. The demonic goo with a layer of carapace was also cut in half by the sword ray and stuck in the hole in the rock wall. Shockingly, the demonic goo did not die even after being cut in half. The two halves of its body struggled and twisted with all its might, letting out a soft screech. After a few breaths, the two halves of its body stuck together and were reconnected, becoming whole again. The demonic goo's vitality was so tenacious that Ji Tianqing was shocked and could not believe it. Fortunately, The demonic goo had shrunk by half after its body was reconnected, and its strength had weakened a lot. At this time, the man in black finally realized that something was wrong and turned to look at Ji Tianqing. He glared angrily at Ji Tianqing, his eyes overflowing with a cold light and murderous aura. "How dare you follow me, bastard?" The man in black instantly guessed the reason and the purpose of Ji Tianqing's visit. He was shocked and angry and let out a cold shout. Ji Tianqing didn't hide anymore. He walked into the cave openly and stared at the man in black with a cold gaze. "Humph, what a vicious method. A demon like you should be hacked into pieces." Ji Tianqing didn't waste any more words with him. He cursed in a deep voice and waved his palms to display a sword art to kill him. Scarlet Dragon Flash. Following Ji Tianqing's low roar, a 10-meter-long flaming sword light shot out like a divine dragon. The dazzling light of the fire illuminated the entire cave, and also clearly reflected the fear on the black-clothed man's face. When the black-clothed man sensed the terrifying might of Scarlet Dragon Flash, he immediately realized that Ji Tianqing was countless times stronger than him. The fighting spirit in his heart had completely disappeared, and he didn't even have the thought of fighting back. He immediately retreated. However, Crimson Dragon Flash's killing speed was too fast, and it was too late for him to dodge. Boom! Following a muffled explosion, Scarlet Dragon Flash fiercely smashed into the black-clothed man, shattering his protective demonic fog and piercing through his chest. The sword radiance exploded with a terrifying force and sent the black-robed man flying backwards. He crashed heavily into a rock wall 100 feet away. Crack! The hard and cold rock layer was actually smashed into a huge crater, and dense cracks appeared all around. The black-clothed man spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground powerlessly. He lay on the ground twitching, and blood kept flowing out from his nose and mouth. He let out a heart-wrenching scream. In between his chest and abdomen, there was a bowl-sized bloody hole that went through the front and back of his body. Dark red blood and internal organs also leaked out from the bloody hole, and it looked extremely ferocious. The black-clothed man, who was at Sky Origin Stage 2, couldn't even withstand a single blow from Ji Tianqing, who was at Sky Origin Stage 6. Of course, this was the result of Ji Tianqing being merciful and only using 50% of his strength. If he used 100% of his strength, he could kill the black-clothed man in one strike. However, he still had to continue investigating this matter. If he wanted to find out the truth, he had to capture the black-clothed man alive. He walked towards the black-clothed man, and with a cold look, he asked in a cold voice, "Speak. Who ordered you to plant the demonic parasites? Was it the ancient demonic emperor?" The black-clothed man didn't answer. His body trembled as he struggled, and he lowered his head to the ground. Roar! He let out a beast-like roar, and his body quickly grew in size. His flesh and blood expanded rapidly, and his body immediately changed. The black robe he was wearing was torn apart, and it became a pile of rags that scattered on the ground. In just 2 short breaths, he turned from a tall human man into a ferocious beast that was over 10 meters tall. This was a demonic beast with 4 limbs and a lion's tail and 2 heads. Its flat and wide mouth was filled with sharp fangs. Its body was covered with dense black scales, and there was a pair of black wings on its back. There were 2 rows of sharp barbs on its spine. Without a doubt, this was its true form. In its human form, it was severely injured by the red dragon flash, and there was a bowl-sized bloody hole in its chest. Now that it was back in its true form, there was still a big bloody hole in its chest. It was as big as a wash basin, and the white bones inside could be clearly seen. However, compared to its huge body, this wound was insignificant. It wasn't life-threatening. Roar! The ferocious demonic beast stared coldly at Ji Tianqing, and it let out an angry roar, as if it was warning Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing didn't take it seriously at all, and continued to walk closer to it. He sneered, "I'll give you one last chance, confess honestly. Otherwise, I'll let you have a taste of what it's like to be dead." A hint of fear flashed in the eyes of the ferocious demonic beast, and it immediately made up its mind to run for its life. It roared angrily, waved its sharp claws, and desperately shot out a cold black light. It condensed into 6 black light pillars, and fiercely blasted towards Ji Tianqing. After using the secret technique, it didn't look at the result, and immediately turned to escape towards the exit of the cave. "Humph, you don't know what's good for you." Ji Tianqing snorted disdainfully, and raised his right hand to shoot out a giant golden palm, and smashed the 6 black light pillars into pieces. He was about to intercept and kill the ferocious demonic beast, but suddenly he saw the demonic goo insect hiding in the rock wall, and it wanted to take the opportunity to escape. It's just a demonic goo insect, and it has such intelligence. How incredible! Ji Tianqing sneered and raised his hand to condense a golden palm and fiercely grabbed the rock wall. Bang! The rock wall was blasted into pieces and countless pieces of gravel burst out. The golden palm instantly caught the demonic goo insect and captured it in its hand and brought it back in front of Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing immediately took out a dark brown magic treasure box and put the demonic goo insect into it. He put the treasure box into the space ring and then turned to look at the ferocious demonic beast that was fleeing. He saw that the ferocious demonic beast was fleeing in panic. It had just escaped to the exit of the cave and was about to enter the dark tunnel. At this moment, purple lightning lit up in the dark tunnel. Chapter 780. The power of thunder was violent and domineering. The lightning beam was as thick as an arm, and its power was even more terrifying. The ferocious demonic beast was hit head-on by the lightning beam and was immediately seriously injured. A bloody hole as big as a wash basin appeared in its chest. The flesh around the wound was scorched black and smoking, and purplish-red demonic blood kept gushing out. The ferocious demonic beast fell in the cave, struggling with all its might. Its whole body twitched, and it roared in pain. At the same time, a young man and a young woman with extraordinary temperament walked out of the dark passage and came to the cave. These two people were Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao. Behind them was a furry ice fox. It was Chen Yu. Ji Tianqing looked at Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao, smiled and greeted them. You came at the right time. Long Yunxiao nodded and said with a chuckle, even if I don't take action, this demon won't be able to escape from your hands. As he spoke, everyone surrounded the ferocious demonic beast and looked at it with sharp eyes. Its injuries were too serious, especially the lightning beam that Long Yunxiao had shot out. It had hit its chest and almost killed it. It could only lie on the ground, trembling all over. It kept letting out muffled roars, and it had no strength to escape. Yun Yao observed it for a while, and then asked Ji Tianqing, Tianqing, did you find it in the Zheng family's residence? Did it rob the Zheng family's disciples? Ji Tianqing nodded and explained, I waited in the Zheng family's residence for the whole night. I only found it at dawn. It was carrying a person out of the Zheng family's residence. I followed it all the way here and saw with my own eyes how it sowed the demonic insects. Fortunately, I took action in time. Otherwise, that poor young master of the Zheng family would also be infected by the demonic insects. As he spoke, Ji Tianqing pointed at the demonic cocoon behind him. Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao looked up and saw a young man wrapped in the dark brown demonic cocoon. They immediately understood what had happened. At this time, Ji Tianqing took out the seal of mountains and rivers. He used his power to activate the golden seal, and it became as big as a house. This demon is very stubborn. We don't need to waste time interrogating it. Moreover, it had always been in the form of a human and did not reveal any demonic aura. The situation was extremely strange. Let's bring it back and hand it over to Divine Teacher Black Feather. Perhaps Divine Teacher Black Feather will be able to figure out what's going on. After saying that, Ji Tianqing activated the power of the Seal of Mountains and Rivers, knocking out the ferocious demonic beast and storing it into the Seal of Mountains and Rivers. There was a space inside the Seal of Mountains and Rivers. It was like a spacious secret chamber. It could be used to store things, and it could also be used as a prison to suppress captives. Once the ferocious demonic beasts were trapped in that space, they would have to endure the suppression of the Seal of Mountains and Rivers. It was impossible for them to escape. Moreover, it had been knocked unconscious by Ji Tianqing. It wouldn't wake up for a few hours, so it couldn't commit suicide. Ji Tianqing put away the Seal of Mountains and Rivers and led Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao towards the demonic cocoon. Long Yunxiao observed carefully for a moment and asked with a frown, Tianqing, how is the young master of the Zheng family? Will there be any problems? Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, don't worry. His body was only eroded by the demonic cocoon. He hasn't been demonized, nor has he been implanted with demonic insects. He will recover in 3 to 5 months. Long Yunxiao was relieved. He took out the 9-cloud sword and cut open the demonic cocoon, saving the young master of the Zheng family. Then, the 3 of them left the demonic cave with Chen Yu. In order to save time, Long Yunshao rode the double-headed golden dragon and carried Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, Qian Yu, and the young master of the Zheng family back to Zhongzhou City as fast as lightning. An hour later, they returned to Zhongzhou City and went to the Zheng family's upright star courtyard. Ji Tianqing sent the unconscious second young master of the Zheng family back to the Zheng family and briefly explained the cause and the process. When the Zheng family's patriarch and several elders heard the news, they were shocked and relieved. They thanked Ji Tianqing profusely. Ji Tianqing reminded them to be careful and left the Zheng family. At noon, the three of them returned to the monarch mansion and rushed to the Black Feather Palace. Divine Sage Black Feather was still meditating in the main hall. The hall was silent and the atmosphere was cold and lonely. When Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao entered the main hall, only Divine Sage Black Feather was there. Kuan Wu and Fox Princess had not returned. They were obviously still investigating in the city. Divine Sage Black Feather sensed the aura of Ji Tianqing and the other two and opened his eyes to look at them. "Greetings, Divine Sage Black Feather." The three of them walked to Divine Sage Black Feather and stood in front of him, bowing respectfully. Divine Sage Black Feather nodded slightly and revealed a gratified expression. He asked, "What clues have you found?" Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and bowed. He reported, "Divine Sage Black Feather, last night, I was guarding the Zheng family's mansion. At dawn, I found a suspicious person." He explained the cause and process of the matter from beginning to end. After that, he took out the seal of mountains and rivers and released the unconscious, ominous, demonic beast. He threw it on the floor of the main hall. In addition, he took out a treasure box from his interspatial ring and handed the tiny demonic goo to Divine Sage Black Feather. Divine Sage Black Feather looked at the ominous demonic beast and the goo. He waved his sleeves and kept the two items into a magic treasure, temporarily sealing them. He stared at Ji Tianqing and revealed a satisfied expression. He said with a gratified tone, "Ji Tianqing, you have found so many valuable clues in such a short time. Your performance is very good. I am very satisfied. Now tell me what you think." Ji Tianqing, Long Yunshao, and Yun Yao looked at each other and expressed their thoughts. Long Yunshao revealed a worried expression. He said with a worried tone, "The demonic goo is very vicious and hard to guard against. This demon can even disguise as a human and hide in the Zheng family for a few days without being discovered. If Tianqing didn't pay special attention, we wouldn't have been able to catch this demon." Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement. He said with a serious tone, "The demon who planted the demonic goo can disguise as a human and avoid our detection. Their movements are very secretive. If we don't find out how they hide their presence, it will be very difficult for us to find the demon who planted the goo." Yun Yao also said with a serious expression, "Divine Sage Black Feather, if we continue to guard the various families, not only will it be a waste of time, the success rate will be very low and we will be in a passive position. I think that we should quickly find out how the demon race hides their presence and disguises as humans. Only by finding a way to deal with them can we take the initiative and solve this matter faster and resolve the demon race's conspiracy." Divine Sage Black Feather nodded in agreement after hearing the three's opinions. He said with a deep voice, "What you all said is very reasonable. This matter is indeed getting more and more troublesome. I am currently researching how to deal with the demonic goo, and I already have some ideas. I will also carefully study that demon just now and find out how it disguises as a human as soon as possible. You all have already been busy for 2 days. Go back to your respective residences and rest. I will immediately send an order to the City Lord's residence and let the City Lord's residence send experts to guard the various families. After I find out the reason, I will send someone to inform you all." Xiaohe has decided to add 2 more chapters today. It will be delivered at 19 p.m. Chapter 781. Ji Tianqing and the other 2 had found the key clue, so they left the rest to Divine Master Heyu. They believed that with Divine Master Heiyu's strength, means, and status, he would soon find out the results. The 3 of them bowed and left Black Feather Palace, returning to their respective cave residences to rest. Ji Tianqing returned to Tianqing Palace, which he had been away from for a long time, and immediately summoned the housekeeper to report the news. It had been half a month since he left Tianqing Palace and went to Cloud Spirit Palace with Yun Yao. In the past half a month, he was not in Tianqing Palace, but a few people came to find him and left some messages and letters. Ji Tianqing sat in the main hall, listening to the housekeeper's report and making decisions and replies one by one. Most of those who came to find him were the imperial princes of the imperial residence. The letters and messages received by the housekeeper were mostly unimportant news. Only a piece of news from Qingfeng Courtyard caught his attention. "Master, this is a letter from Qingfeng Courtyard." According to the guards of the imperial residence, the messenger was a white ape who mentioned young Master Yen Er. The housekeeper reported the news and handed over a letter with both hands. "A letter from the white ape? Is it a letter from Yen Er to me?" Ji Tianqing reached out his hand and caught the letter in his palm. He opened the envelope, took out the letter inside, and read it carefully. The content of the letter was very short, only one sentence, and it was written by Yen Er. "Senior brother Tianqing, I just returned to Zhongzhou City today and temporarily stayed in Qingfeng Courtyard. I have important news to tell you." A smile flashed in Ji Tianqing's eyes. He raised his eyebrows and asked the housekeeper, "Housekeeper, when was this letter sent?" The housekeeper quickly replied, in reply to Master, "It was sent early this morning." "Okay, I'll go to Qingfeng Courtyard now." Ji Tianqing put away the letter and quickly left Tianqing Palace, rushing to the exit of the imperial residence. An hour later, he left the imperial residence and hurried to the Breeze Yard in the Fish Dragon Alley. When he entered the Cool Breeze Courtyard and rushed to the main hall of the second courtyard, he saw Yen Er and the Beast King sitting in the main hall and talking. The old man and the young man were drinking tea and chatting. The Beast King was full of concern as he asked Yen Er if the trip back to the Fire Tribe went smoothly, what happened, and so on. When Ji Tianqing entered the hall, the Beast King and Yen Er immediately stopped talking and turned their heads to look at him. "Senior brother Tianqing, you're back so soon?" Yen Er's face was full of excitement and joy. Apparently, he did not expect Ji Tianqing to come to him so soon. The Beast King smiled and said to Ji Tianqing, "Tianqing, you haven't been to Qingfeng Courtyard for a long time. If Yen Er hadn't come back today, I don't know when you would come to visit this old man." Ji Tianqing walked to the front of the two and greeted them. He then smiled and said to the Beast King, "Senior Beast King, please don't blame me. This junior has been busy with worldly affairs recently and really can't spare time. As such, this junior is free today and immediately came to see you." The Beast King showed a gratified expression and laughed. "Ha ha, although this old man knows you're lying, this old man feels comfortable listening to you. Well, this old man won't disturb you. Since you came to see Yen Er, you two must have something to talk about." The Beast King exchanged a few words with Ji Tianqing and then got up and left the hall. Only Ji Tianqing and Yen Er were left in the hall. The hall suddenly quieted down. Ji Tianqing sat down next to Yen Er and asked, "Yen Er, you've only been away for 2 months. Why are you back so soon? Your trip back to the Fire Tribe this time was smooth, right?" Yen Er nodded and said, "Well, everything went smoothly." Ji Tianqing asked again, "What about Huyen? Has he been escorted back to the Fire Tribe? How did your imperial father deal with him?" Yen Er showed a smile and nodded. "When senior brother crippled Huyen, imperial uncle, and I personally escorted him. Of course, the journey was smooth. After we took Huyen back, my imperial father executed Huyen according to the rules and laws of the Fire Tribe and beheaded him in public. However, before my imperial father executed Huyen, he used all kinds of secret methods to interrogate a lot of information from him. The news is very shocking and is related to the secrets of the Duanmu family and even the imperial court. I guess that senior brother Tianqing would be interested, so I came back as soon as possible to tell you about it in person." Ji Tianqing frowned suddenly, and a light flashed in his eyes. He said with some surprise, "It's related to the secrets of the Duanmu family? And it's related to the imperial court? Yen Er, what information did you interrogate from Huyen?" Yen Er frowned and thought for a while, then said in a serious tone, "Senior brother Tianqing, don't worry, we interrogated him and got a lot of shocking information. Let me tell you slowly. Huyen used to be the high priest of our Fire Tribe. He was a person of virtue and prestige, deeply trusted and valued by my imperial father. But later, he married the 7th princess of the Chongli tribe, and his temperament changed drastically. He became a selfish, despicable, cruel, and vicious villain. The main reason was that his wife failed to steal the Fire Divine Crystal and was executed by my imperial father, so he hated her. But there was another more important reason. He was poisoned by his wife and had to help his wife do evil." "Poison?" Ji Tianqing frowned and said in a serious tone, Coincidentally, I've been investigating the demon poison for the past 2 days. Tianzi once mentioned that some ancient tribes in the southern wasteland have mysterious poison techniques that can kill people without leaving a trace and control the life and death of others. Yen quickly nodded and said, Tianzi is right. There are indeed many ancient tribes in the southern wasteland, and they still have the ancient and mysterious poison techniques. The Chongli tribe is one of them. Ji Tianqing asked with a playful smile, What about your fire tribe? Have you mastered any poison techniques? Yen quickly shook his head. The poison techniques are too evil and vicious. Our fire tribe views it as a taboo. We will never touch this technique. Furthermore, our fire tribe has strict laws and rules. If any of our tribesmen practice the poison techniques without permission, they will be severely punished. Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a smile, That's good. Yen continue. Yen continued. Hui Yen learned the mysterious poison techniques from the Chongli tribe through his wife, and he secretly practiced and experimented with them. This was also one of the reasons why he was severely punished by my imperial father and was expelled from the fire tribe. After Hua Yen escaped to the central region, he lived for a few years and actually got in touch with the human imperial court. He was taken in by a prince and worked for that prince. With the help of that prince, he took in the second madam of the Duanmu tribe as his adopted daughter. Later, he helped the second madam to enter the Duanmu tribe and slowly raised her status. Finally, she became the second madam of the Duanmu Huang. The reason why Hua Yen did this was because he was instructed by that prince. Because that prince was very ambitious. Chapter 782. Hearing Yen words, Ji Tianqing's heart was filled with shock. Previously, I thought that Hua Yan's backing was the Duanmu family. I didn't expect that his true master was actually that prince. Yen who exactly is that prince of the imperial court? This person actually has such powerful courage and means to vainly attempt to control the Duanmu family? Could it be that that prince is the mastermind behind the Duanmu family and Morong family's alliance? Ji Tianqing had long guessed that the Duanmu family and Morong family joining hands to deal with the Yun family was definitely instigated by a powerful force. The only force stronger than the two families was the imperial court. After all, no matter how strong the ancient family's foundation was, it could not be compared to the imperial court. The imperial court was the emperor, and the various families were the subjects. They had to bow their heads and obey orders. Yen nodded and said, Senior brother Tianqing, your guess is right. That prince is the imperial court's third prince, and also the mastermind behind controlling the Duanmu family and Morong family. This person has great power in the imperial court and usually hides very deeply. Therefore, this news is top secret. Ji Tianqing frowned and pondered for a moment. He asked doubtfully, even if that third prince used Hua Yan's gu poison arts to control many wealthy families and strengthen his own power. But Hua Yan only has the strength of Heaven Origin Realm. He can only plant gu poison in Heaven Origin Realm powerhouses and control some Heaven Origin Realm powerhouses. The Duanmu family and Morong family's family heads are both Soul Refinement Realm powerhouses. Just based on Hua Yan's gu poison arts, how can it threaten Soul Refinement Realm powerhouses? Yen nodded and said in a solemn tone, Senior brother Tianqing, although the gu poison arts are mysterious and vicious, it's not omnipotent. Moreover, the execution of the gu poison arts is very tedious and complicated. Some special gu poisons also need specific conditions to be sown. Based on Hua Yan's strength and gu poison arts, it's indeed impossible to threaten Soul Refinement Realm powerhouses. However, Hua Yan was obsessed with studying gu poison arts and understood a legend from ancient times. He investigated clues from ancient books and learned that a mysterious gu tribe once existed in the southern Desolation Swamp. That gu tribe was born with the ability to cultivate and control gu poisons. They were the tribe that was best at gu arts in the world. In fact, the Gu clan was the birthplace of the world's gu techniques. The gu techniques that were passed down to this day were all learned and evolved from the Gu clan. Legend had it that the Gu clan possessed a supreme sacred artifact with infinite power, called the Origin of All Gu. It was a primordial soul-level magic treasure, an existence comparable to a divine artifact. At the same time, the myriad gu origin is also a sacred altar that can gather the power of heaven and earth and release unimaginably powerful gu techniques. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing's expression became serious, and he muttered in a low voice, origin of all venomous insects? A primordial soul-level magic treasure was comparable to a divine artifact? The Gu clan and the origin of all Gu only existed in the legends of the Antiquity era. They no longer exist in this world. I have never even heard of them. What happened to Yen-er? Yen-er took a deep breath and said in a dignified tone, "Legend has it that when the ancient times were about to end, the southern wasteland marsh was punished by the gods. It was a disaster that destroyed the heavens and the earth. That place used to be a land of abundance. Many powerful and ancient races lived there, and there were even countless kingdoms. However, in the destructive divine punishment, everything was destroyed and turned into scorched ruins. The Gu clan also disappeared and became the dust of history. The divine artifact, the origin of all Gu, was also missing. There were only some scattered records and descriptions left in the history books. Hua Yen spent more than 20 years of effort to find almost all the information related to Gu techniques. Finally, he found a clue about the origin of all Gu. The third prince of the imperial court saw the magic and power of Gu techniques and began to cultivate Gu techniques to control the forces and powerhouses under his command. However, it was impossible for him to control Duanmu and the Morong family with just ordinary Gu techniques. Therefore, he seized Hua Yan's efforts of more than 20 years and took the information and clues about the origin of all Gu for himself. Ji Tianqing frowned and sneered. Haha, this third prince is indeed despicable and shameless. Hua Yan worked hard for him, but he treated Hua Yan like this. Could it be that the third prince found the origin of all Gu after he got the clue? Yen-er nodded and said in a low voice. The third prince was ambitious and wanted to control the two great families. However, his strength had not reached the soul-refining realm, so he could only pin his hopes on the origin of all Gu. He had almost exhausted all of his strength to lead countless experts and capable people into the southern wasteland Great Swamp. It is said that they spent 2 years in the southern wilderness swamp and went through many dangers. Finally, they found the origin of all Gu. When the third prince walked out of the southern wilderness swamp with the origin of all Gu, only 3 of the 300 powerhouses who followed him were still alive. Ji Tianqing was shocked on the spot and couldn't help but gasp. Hiss! Only 3 of the 300 powerhouses survived? The southern wilderness swamp is so dangerous? Yenber said with some emotion. Yes, the southern wilderness swamp is a forbidden area of death. Legend has it that it is an abandoned land cursed by the gods. However, there are too many ancient secrets and treasures buried there. It is said that there is also a primordial spirit supreme's cave and inheritance. Therefore, even if people know that they will lose their lives in the southern wilderness swamp, they still can't resist the great temptation and enter without hesitation. Ji Tianqing immediately recalled that at the birthday banquet of Miracle Dr. Bailey, the birthday gift he presented to Miracle Dr. Bailey included a few fragments of ancient artifacts from the Seven Slaughter ancient palace. After listening to Yenber's words, he became more interested in the mysterious southern wilderness swamp. He secretly thought that when he was strong enough in the future, he must go to the southern wilderness swamp to explore. Maybe he could gain something. At this time, Yen-er continued. After the third prince got the origin of all Gu, he studied and cultivated for many years and finally mastered the origin of all Gu. He used another 5 years to use all kinds of tricks and methods to use the power of the origin of all Gu to plant the Gu in Duanmu Huang and Morong family's master. The kind of Gu that the third prince used is a divine Gu that can only be used by primordial spirit magic treasures. It is specially planted in the martial artist's soul. The divine Gu is neither poison nor a Gu worm, but a kind of invisible power similar to a curse. Even though Duanmu Huang and Morong family's master have the strength of the soul-refining realm, they can't resist the corrosion of the origin of all Gu for 5 years. Finally, they were silently infected with the divine Gu and controlled by the third prince. Duanmu Huang and Morong family's master are normal on normal days, but every 3 months on the night of the full moon, the divine Gu in their soul will act up. If there is no imperial spirit talisman to save them, the divine Gu will gradually devour their soul, making them beyond redemption and completely annihilated. In this way, they won't even have the chance to be reincarnated after death. Therefore, the Duanmu family and Morong family can only listen to the third prince and get an imperial spirit talisman every 3 months to prolong their lives. Chapter 783. After listening to Yen-er's narration, Ji Tianqing frowned and his expression was very grave. The information that Yen said was really too important. It was indeed top secret. Who would have thought that the Duanmu and Morong families that seemed to be boundless and had been passed down for thousands of years had actually been secretly controlled by someone? The third prince of the imperial court was not only ambitious and extremely shrewd, but his methods were also very ruthless and decisive. He was definitely an ambitious and ruthless character. Ji Tianqing immediately thought of Long Yunshao and compared him with the third prince. He immediately came to a conclusion. Although Long Yunshao also had his shrewdness and wisdom, compared to the third prince, he was much more upright and kind. He was really a modest gentleman. Ji Tianqing pondered for a moment and thought of a problem. He asked Yen, the Duanmu and Morong families seem to have formed an alliance more than 10 years ago to deal with the Yun family together. Could it be that the third prince had obtained the origin of all Gu and controlled the two families since then? How old is he? Yen quickly shook his head and explained, that third prince seems to be more than 30 years old. Indeed, more than 10 years ago, he had secretly colluded with the Duanmu and Morong families. However, at that time, the two families still had a lot of power. They only talked about conditions and cooperation with the third prince, and were not controlled by him at all. Because of this, the third prince used Huiyan's Gu poison technique to deliberately subdue many powerful families and strengthen his own power. In order to completely control the Duanmu and Morong families, the third prince spared no expense to find the origin of all Gu. Until 8 years ago, he obtained the origin of all Gu and spent another 5 years to gradually control the two families. So that's how it is. How sinister and despicable. Ji Tianqing came to a realization and completely understood everything. After thinking for a moment, he said with a grave expression, Yen since this third prince is the mastermind behind the scenes, then I must have offended him by dealing with the Duanmu family. However, if he doesn't appear to attack me, I can't deal with him for the time being. Let's deal with the Duanmu family first. Yen frowned as a worried look appeared on her small face. She quickly explained, Senior brother Tianqing, the reason why I told you this is to remind you to be careful of the third prince. Actually, before you dealt with the Duanmu family, you had already offended the third prince. He had long wanted you dead. Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment. He asked doubtfully, when did I offend him before dealing with the Duanmu clan? Do you mean when I was still in the Tianjin region? Yen nodded and said in a resentful tone, I heard from Huiyan that the third prince has not only subdued many noble families in the central province. Moreover, he had even set up arrangements in the 9 regions of the south and controlled many sects and powerful forces. The Tianjian sect in the Tianjin region was controlled by the third prince. The third prince wanted the Tianjian sect to control the Tianjin region so that he could become the invisible Tianjin region lord. However, his plan was destroyed by you, and the position of Tianjin region lord was also taken by you. No wonder Gao Yi of the Tianjian sect was so arrogant. So that's why. Ji Tianqing suddenly understood, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. Since the enmity has already been formed, then I can't just sit and wait for death. After dealing with the Duanmu family, I will fight with him. Yen suddenly thought of something, and a bright light flashed in her eyes. She said excitedly, Senior brother Tianqing, I thought of something. It should be an excellent opportunity. 5 days later, it will be the night of the full moon. It will also be the day when the divine venomous worm in Duanmu Huang's body will erupt. On that day, the third prince will send someone to Duanmu Huang, as usual, to remove the divine venomous worm's soul-devouring power. Hearing this news, Ji Tianqing's heart suddenly beat faster, and his eyes shone brightly. That's great. This is indeed a heaven-sent opportunity. Yen thank you so much. If you hadn't told me this news, who would have thought that a powerful soul-refining cultivator like Duanmu Huang would be secretly controlled by someone and have such a weakness? If I can take advantage of this opportunity to kill Duanmu Huang, the Duanmu family will definitely fall apart. Yen let's go back to the imperial residence first and make a long-term plan. After saying this, Ji Tianqing hurriedly left the cool breeze courtyard with Yen and rushed back to the imperial residence. Before this, Ji Tianqing had pondered and thought many times about how to completely destroy the Duanmu family. Although he had destroyed the Duanmu family's herb garden and caused 80% of the Duanmu family's businesses to be shut down, and their power and influence plummeted. In the past 2 months, Cloud Spirit Palace and various powerful forces had been working together to suppress the Duanmu family, causing the Duanmu family's situation to become worse and worse. However, these were all superficial methods. They could only hurt the Duanmu family's wealth and power, but they couldn't really destroy the Duanmu family. As long as Duanmu Huang was still alive, the Duanmu family's elders, managers, and powerful soul-refining cultivators were still alive. The Duanmu family could hole up in Greenwood City and struggle at death's door. Therefore, if he wanted to destroy the Duanmu family, he had to kill Duanmu Huang first. As long as Duanmu Huang fell, the monkeys under the tree would naturally disperse, and the Duanmu family would also fall apart. How could he kill Duanmu Huang? Ji Tianqing had thought about this question many times, but in the end, he could only sigh helplessly. Wanting to kill a great powerhouse of the soul refinement realm was truly too difficult, especially when he had been attacked by Duanmu Huang. Fortunately, Yun Zhongqi had saved him, and he had witnessed Duanmu Huang's powerful strength with his own eyes. He had to admit that killing Duanmu Huang was as difficult as ascending to heaven. However, it was different now. When Ji Tianqing found out about Duanmu Huang's weakness, a flame of hope lit up in his heart. Without a doubt, this was an excellent opportunity. If he missed this opportunity, he didn't know when he would have the chance to kill Duanmu Huang. In order to avoid any unexpected changes if he continued to delay, Ji Tianqing decided to seize this opportunity and take action in 5 days. He brought Yan back to Tianqing Palace and immediately entered a secret room to discuss the plan. Yan how is the third prince's strength? The soul-refining talisman is related to Duanmu Huang's life. Will the third prince personally deliver the talisman to the Duanmu family? Yan seriously thought about it and said with a serious expression, according to what Huyen knows, the third prince's strength has reached half a step into the soul-refining stage. After he successfully controlled Duanmu Huang, in the first year, he would personally deliver the soul-refining talisman every 3 months. However, the third prince is very busy and can't personally deliver the talisman every time. Therefore, he left this matter to his trusted aide. In any case, this matter is extremely secretive and only a few people know the truth. In these few years, it has always been the third prince's trusted aide delivering the talisman, and there has never been a mistake. Ji Tianqing nodded and sneered. Very good. Then we will kill the person who is delivering the talisman and snatch the talisman. Chapter 784. Hearing Ji Tianqing's plan, Yan also showed a strong expression of expectation. He looked at Ji Tianqing with shining eyes and asked, Senior Tianqing, do you want to intercept the Imperial Spirit Talisman and let the Duanmu Huang's divine venomous insect attack, and let the divine venomous insect devour his divine soul? Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and sighed. Alas! If things can go so smoothly, it will be simple. The Imperial Spirit Talisman is related to the Duanmu Huang's life. How can he take it lightly? By the way, Yan when the divine venomous insect attacks on the night of the full moon, how long will it take to devour the Duanmu Huang's divine soul and kill him? Yan thought for a moment and said with some uncertainty, Huyen doesn't know much about this matter and can't be sure of the specific time. Maybe 3 days, maybe 5 days. It will take 3 to 5 days to kill the Duanmu Huang? Ji Tianqing frowned and shook his head with a dignified expression. In that case, after we intercept the Imperial Spirit Talisman, we can't keep it and can only send it to the Duanmu clan. After all, if the Duanmu Huang can't receive the Imperial Spirit Talisman on the night of the full moon, he will definitely contact the third prince. If the third prince knows that the Imperial Spirit Talisman has been intercepted, he will know that this secret has been exposed, and we will alert the enemy. If we intercept the Imperial Spirit Talisman, we have to send it to the Duanmu Huang? Yan showed a startled expression and muttered gloomily. Then why do we have to go through the trouble of intercepting the divine talisman? Ji Tianqing showed a meaningful smile and looked at him with shining eyes and asked, Yan is your fire clan the most proficient in talisman spells? Well, yes. Yan didn't know the inside story and nodded honestly. Ji Tianqing's smile became more and more playful and continued to ask, What about you? How are your talisman spells? Yan smiled a little shyly and said modestly, Everyone in the clan said that I inherited my father's talent, and my talisman spells are not bad. I can barely be called a talisman master. That's great. Ji Tianqing immediately nodded and said with a smile, After we intercepted the talisman, we had to deliver it to the Duanmu Huang in order not to alert the enemy. However, we can add something to the talisman to give the Duanmu Huang a surprise." Hearing his words, Yenner instantly understood his meaning, and his little face revealed an excited smile. "Haha, senior apprentice brother Tianqing, you're too sinister." By the time we delivered the spirit control talisman to the Duanmu clan, the divine venomous goo in the Duanmu Huang had already flared up. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. He only wanted to use the spirit control talisman to alleviate the pain. He didn't think that there was a problem with the talisman. "Exactly." Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. "However, we have to think about how to add something to the Imperial Spirit Talisman. Also, I have to find Yao Yao and ask her to inform Cloud Spirit Palace to cooperate with us. Our target is the Duanmu Huang, and Cloud Spirit Palace needs to cooperate with us to deal with a large number of powerhouses from Greenwood City and the Duanmu family. In short, this plan must be thorough, and we have to think about it at length." Yenner quickly nodded. "Yes, senior apprentice brother Tianqing, go quickly. I'll think of a way to modify the Imperial Spirit Talisman." After saying that, Yenner rummaged through the secret book of Talisman Taoism in his space ring and found many mysterious and powerful talismans. Ji Tianqing walked out of the secret chamber and hurriedly left Tianqing Palace and rushed to Yunyao Palace. After an hour, he entered Yunyao Palace and met with Yun Yao in the secret chamber. Ji Tianqing wanted to talk about important business, so he did not waste time and quickly explained his plan and ideas to Yun Yao. When Yun Yao learned about the ins and outs of the matter and understood the relationship between the Duanmu family, Morong family, and the third prince, she was instantly shocked. Our Yun family had long guessed that the Duanmu family and Morong family were in cahoots with the imperial court. They must have reached an agreement with a prince with great power. I never thought that the truth would be like this. The Duanmu Huang and Morong Hongtian were actually implanted with a divine venomous insect and controlled by the third prince? Ji Tianqing nodded. That's right. Because of this, the Duanmu family and Morong family had no choice but to work together to deal with the Yun family. Yao Yao, I've decided to take action on the night of the full moon and use the Imperial Spirit Talisman to kill the Duanmu Huang. However, my strength alone is not enough. I still need Cloud Spirit Palace's help. This is an excellent opportunity. If our plan succeeds, we can destroy the Duanmu family in one fell swoop. As long as the Duanmu family is destroyed, only the Morong family is left, and the Cloud Spirit Palace's predicament will be easily solved. Yun Yao also understood this point. She nodded with a serious expression. All right. I'll immediately send a message to my father and report this matter to him. I'll ask him to help us. Tianqing, you personally intercepted the Imperial Spirit Talisman and even sent it to the Duanmu family to kill the Duanmu Huang. This is too dangerous. How about this? I'll let my father deal with the Duanmu Huang. After all, the Duanmu Huang is a spirit refinement realm expert. Ji Tianqing shook his head. Yao Yao, how can I not understand this? However, this matter must be done by me. Uncle must not take action, and he must not even show his face. Previously, I've already tested the Imperial Court's attitude through Long Yun Shao. The Imperial Court wants to maintain the stability of Zhongzhou and does not allow the human race to fight among themselves. This is the Imperial Court's way of keeping the three big families in balance. Because of this, the Imperial Court knows that the Duanmu family and Morong family are working together to deal with the Yun family. That's why they tacitly allowed Long Yun Shao to support the Yun family. I'm not a disciple of the three big families, nor am I a member of the Imperial Court. I'm considered an outsider. I can deal with the Duanmu family without any restrictions because this is a personal grudge between me and the Duanmu family. However, if Uncle Yun takes action, the meaning will be different. Even if Uncle Yun can kill the Duanmu Huang, he will offend the Imperial Court and infuriate the Imperial Emperor. If Cloud Spirit Palace offends the Imperial Court, how can we have a good life in the future? Indeed, in the Tianqian continent, other than the Imperial Court, no one dared to offend the Imperial Court. If not, the Yun family would have already started a war with the Duanmu family and the Morong family. The spirit refinement realm experts would have already started killing each other. However, the Imperial Court's dignity could not be offended. With the Imperial Emperor, a primordial soul realm expert, who dared to be impudent. Yun Yao's emotions were extremely complicated. After a long silence, she nodded helplessly. Tianqing, you're right. My father can't take action. However, if you do this, you'll have to risk your life. I really don't want anything to happen to you. Tianqing held her hands and revealed a confident smile. He comforted her. Yao Yao, don't worry. I'll plan thoroughly and ensure that nothing goes wrong. I'll also protect myself and nothing will happen to me. After all, I'm still waiting to eliminate the Duanmu family and marry you in front of everyone. This time, Yun Yao did not shy away from his burning gaze. She was moved and nodded with a determined expression. Tianqing, after we eliminate the Duanmu family, Cloud Spirit Palace's crisis will be resolved and Zhongzhou will be at peace. Chapter 785. After Tianqing and Yun Yao finished their discussion, they returned to the Tianqing Palace. For the next 3 days, he cultivated diligently in the secret chamber, trying to improve his cultivation. Since he reached the 6th level of Sky Origin stage, his cultivation progress slowed down. He had achieved the ultimate sword body. It was extremely difficult for him to reach the 9th level of the sword heart and condense the heart of the sword. Luckily, he cultivated the heart of the sword day and night. With the help of the White Heart Demon Suppression Art, his cultivation progress didn't slow down. After a month of cultivation, he had reached the peak of the 6th level of Sky Origin stage. He was only 1 step away from the 7th level of Sky Origin stage. However, this 1 step was a bottleneck and a shackle. It was difficult to break through. Tianqing knew clearly that he couldn't break through by cultivating in seclusion. Only luck and opportunity could help him break through the shackle. However, luck and opportunity were hard to come by. It would be a full moon in 2 days. Where could he go to find luck and opportunity in such a hurry? The only thing he could do was to cultivate and accumulate martial power. He wanted to make his martial power stronger. 3 days had passed. That night, Yun Yao came to the Tianqing Palace with a piece of good news. Tianqing, my father just sent me a message. He agrees with what you are doing. He thinks this is a great opportunity. My father is very happy and satisfied with your plan. He has arranged everything and will do his best to help you. Yun Yao reported the situation to Tianqing with a joyful expression. She was excited. Tianqing smiled and nodded. I knew it. Uncle is a man of great talent and bold vision. You will definitely act decisively and not drag your feet. In fact, compared to Bailey Ningsu's careful and cautious mind, he preferred Yun Zhongqi's imposing and decisive manner. Maybe it was because his personality and way of thinking were similar to Yun Zhongqi's. That was why they could always reach a consensus. Now that he got Yun Zhongqi's answer and full support, he had nothing to worry about. At this moment, Yun Yao took out a palm-sized black bell from her spatial ring and handed it to him. Tianqing, my father sent someone to deliver this magical equipment and asked me to give it to you. He said that you will definitely need it when you take action. Tianqing took the black bell and held it in his palm, carefully examining it. The bell was completely black, and it emitted a mysterious and cold aura. It contained an extremely sinister and powerful energy, causing people to feel apprehensive. Tianqing faintly felt that this bell was somewhat familiar, and immediately frowned. This magic treasure. Isn't this the ancient bell that Yun Luo used to assassinate Uncle? Yun Yao nodded and said, that's right. This magic treasure is called the Soul Reaping Bell. It's the most precious treasure of the Southern Wasteland's Inhun clan, a high-grade soul-level magic treasure. This magic treasure specialized in restraining the souls of soul refinement realm cultivators and was extremely powerful. More than 10 years ago, the Duanmu clan had massacred the entire Inhun clan in order to seize this soul-reaping bell. Duanmu Huang obtained this magic treasure to deal with my father. He originally thought that by using Yun Luo to sneak attack my father, he could use the soul-reaping bell to heavily injure my father's soul. But he didn't expect that his and Yun Luo's scheme would be seen through by you in the end. Tianqing held the soul-reaping bell tightly, and his eyes surged with a bright light. He sneered and said, Haha, Duanmu Huang has been plotting for many years to use this sinister magic treasure to deal with Uncle Yun. But now, I have to use this magic treasure to deal with him. How ironic. That's right, this soul-reaping bell is Duanmu Huang's magic treasure, so it must have his soul aura. If I bring this magic treasure to the Duanmu clan, I will definitely be discovered by Duanmu Huang, right? Yun Yao revealed a faint smile and shook her head, saying, My father has already considered this point. He has already used a secret technique to erase the soul aura in the soul-reaping bell. Even if you carry it with you, Duanmu Huang won't discover it. Tianqing, my father said that he will give this soul-reaping bell to you and pass on a secret technique to help you refine the soul-reaping bell and make it recognize you as its master. After saying this, Yunyao took out a dark green jade slip from her interspatial ring. The jade slip's shape was simple and beautiful, and its surface was engraved with mysterious patterns that flickered with fluorescent light. A secret technique was recorded inside. Uncle's consideration is really thorough. Ji Tianqing praised with a smile and reached out to take the jade slip. After I master the secret technique and refine the soul-reaping bell, I will be able to control it as I wish. It will be as easy as moving a finger, and I will be able to display an even greater power. Yunyao nodded and said, Tianqing, it will be the night of the full moon in 2 days. I won't disturb you anymore. You should refine the soul-reaping bell as soon as possible. After that, she gave Ji Tianqing a few words of concern before leaving the Tianqing palace. After she left, Ji Tianqing focused on cultivating the secret technique in the jade slip and refining the soul-reaping bell with all his might. Every soul-level Dharma treasure had a corresponding secret technique to control it. Only by using the secret technique could the Dharma treasure unleash a greater power. Ji Tianqing understood this point deeply, so he was especially focused on cultivating the secret technique. Very quickly, 12 hours had passed, and he had finally mastered the incantation. Then, he used his power to force out a drop of blood essence from his heart and dripped it on the soul-reaping bell. That drop of pale golden divine blood immediately merged with the soul-reaping bell, causing the palm-sized ancient bell to emit a golden light that shot up to the sky. Buzz! The golden light filled the entire secret room and condensed all kinds of magic illusions, revealing a mysterious power. Ji Tianqing immediately felt that he had a mental connection with the soul-reaping bell. It was as if their minds were connected and they had become one. He didn't need to move his hands. With just a thought, the soul-reaping bell expanded and flew around him. I didn't expect that the Dharma treasure would be so magical after recognizing its master. It seems that I have to ask the Emperor for the secret technique to control the seal of mountains and rivers as soon as possible. After refining the seal of mountains and rivers into my Dharma treasure, I can unleash a greater power. Next, Ji Tianqing continued to cultivate the secret technique to strengthen his control of the soul-reaping bell and strive to unleash a greater power. When he was proficient in the secret technique and could skillfully control the soul-reaping bell, a few hours had passed. The sky outside was already bright, and the 4th day had arrived. Ji Tianqing finished his cultivation and was about to find Yen to ask about the situation. Unexpectedly, when he walked out of the secret room, he saw Yen welcoming him with a joyful expression. Senior brother Tianqing, I've found a way. As soon as the two met, Yen couldn't hold back the excitement in his heart and reported the good news to him. Ji Tianqing quickly asked. Only then did he know that Yen had studied in the secret room for a few days and finally found a way to modify the soul-reaping talisman. Yen waved his fist and said confidently, Senior brother Tianqing, I will add 3 spells to the soul-reaping talisman. Not only will I not be discovered by the Duanmu Huang, but I can also severely injure him. Ji Tianqing showed an expectant look and nodded. Very good. Now everything is ready. We only need to wait for the full moon. Chapter 786. When the sun rose, Ji Tianqing left the emperor's mansion with Yen. This time, he planned the assassination of the Duanmu Huang very carefully and secretly. Other than Yen and Yunyao, only Yun Zhongqi knew about his specific plan. Even Long Yunxiao was kept in the dark and knew nothing about it. However, after Ji Tianqing left the emperor's mansion with Yen, he did not rush to Greenwood City immediately. Instead, he went to the Cool Breeze Yard. He found the Beast King and asked him to help him go to Greenwood City with him. After all, Yen strength had not reached the Tianyuan realm. Her combat power was limited, and it would be difficult for her to help. What Yen needed to do was to modify the soul control talisman and keep a lookout for him. However, he still needed the help of a Tianyuan realm elite to ensure that nothing would go wrong. The Beast King was proficient in the beast language and had mastered all kinds of secret skills to control demonic beasts. He was undoubtedly the most suitable candidate. After all, the Mangu forest was too big. Greenwood City had a radius of 100 miles. It would be difficult for Ji Tianqing and Yen to intercept the people who were escorting the Soul Control Talisman. It would be easy for them to miss the opportunity. If the Beast King helped, it would be much easier. The Beast King could control many demonic beasts to act as his eyes and ears to monitor the movements around Greenwood City. Ji Tianqing told the Beast King his intention and sincerely invited him to help. However, to be on the safe side, he did not reveal his specific plans and intentions. Even so, with the Beast King's wisdom and knowledge, he could guess that his purpose was to deal with the Duanmu family. A meaningful smile appeared on the Beast King's face, and he nodded without hesitation. Hee, it seems that Tianqing, you are going to attack the Duanmu family. This is a once-in-a-lifetime feat that will shake the central state. How can I miss it? Moreover, with my relationship with your master, how can I not help you now that you are going to take action? Tianqing, don't worry. I will do my best to help you and listen to your orders. After saying that, the Beast King laughed heartily. He was excited and expectant. Ji Tianqing was a little touched. He bowed sincerely and said, Senior Beast King, you knew that this operation was very dangerous, but you didn't hesitate to help. This junior is very grateful. This junior will remember your kindness and will definitely repay it in the future. The Beast King waved his hand, stroked his beard, and laughed. All right, this old man has always regarded you as a nephew, so you don't need to be so polite with this old man. Ji Tianqing also smiled and nodded, no longer bothering with the Beast King. After the Beast King was ready, Ji Tianqing led the Beast King, White Ape, and Yen out of Cool Breeze Courtyard. Riding on Qian Yu and the Little Black Dragon, everyone left Central State City at lightning speed, heading straight for the depths of the Mangu Forest. Central State City was very far from Azurewood City, which was located in the depths of the Manka Forest. Even if Qian Yu and the Little Black Dragon rushed with all their might, it still took them a day and a night to reach Azurewood City. At this time, everyone landed on the top of a mountain that was thousands of feet high. They were resting and conserving their strength. Ji Tianqing, the Beast King, and Yen stood side by side, looking at Azurewood City 100 miles ahead. They were discussing a plan. White Ape, Qian Yu, and the Little Black Dragon were scattered around the mountain, constantly observing the surroundings. Ji Tianqing said in a serious tone, This mountain is exactly 100 miles away from Azurewood City. It is also the highest mountain in the vicinity, so we will use this mountain as our base. Tonight is the night of the full moon, so the people escorting the Divine Talisman will definitely arrive at the Duanmu residence before midnight. They will definitely pass by here on their way from Central State to Azurewood City. As long as we guard the surrounding 100 miles and closely monitor the nearby movements, we will definitely meet the people escorting the Divine Talisman. After all, they are completely unprepared. They will never think that we will ambush them here. The Beast King nodded in agreement. He said with a serious face, Leave this matter to me. White Ape and I will control the demonic beasts within 100 miles and closely monitor the movements around Azurewood City. As long as someone passes through this area and approaches Azurewood City, I will definitely discover them. However, Tianqing, do you know how many people will be escorting the Divine Talisman? What are their cultivation levels? What are their figures and attire like? Yender hurriedly replied, Senior Beast King, there are usually 3 people escorting the Divine Talisman. They are all guards under the command of some big shot. They are all around the 6th level of Sky Origin Stage. They have experienced hundreds of battles and have profound skills. As for their attire, I do not know. However, I believe that in order to keep it a secret, they will disguise themselves as ordinary powerhouses. They will not wear armor and dress like guards. The Beast King nodded and said, All right, I understand. Since they are Sky Origin Stage powerhouses, they will definitely fly. I only need to keep an eye on the sky. You all wait here for the news. I will go and arrange the deployment. After that, the Beast King and White Ape left the mountain peak and went into the vast forest. In the next few hours, the Beast King and White Ape ran around the forest, using a secret technique to summon many demonic beasts. No matter if it was the birds in the sky, the beasts in the forest, or the snakes and insects underground, they would all follow the Beast King's orders. No matter if it was the low-level, mid-level, high-level demonic beasts, or even the Yuan-Dan beasts, they would all be under the Beast King's control. Only the Sky Origin Stage Monster King could resist his beast-taming secret technique. The Mangu forest around Azurewood City was not only dense and deep, but also filled with countless spiritual flowers and herbs. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth was very abundant. The Mangu forest was not only a natural herb garden, but also a paradise for demonic beasts. Countless demonic beasts lived there. In just 6 hours, the Beast King had controlled all the demonic beasts within 100 miles. He commanded tens of thousands of different demonic beasts to closely monitor the situation outside Azurewood City. At this time, Ji Tianqing also opened up a cave on the mountain peak and set up a defensive array to act as a temporary stronghold. He sat in the stronghold and waited for news. Yen was also making preparations. Qian Yu and Little Black Dragon were also not idle. They were wandering in the surrounding forest, investigating the surrounding situation. Night fell, and the night sky was filled with stars. Tonight was a full moon. The bright moon was slowly rising, and the silvery white moonlight shone down from the sky. The forest outside Azurewood City was silent. However, under the calm surface, there was an undercurrent, brewing a huge storm. The time was approaching. There were only 4 hours left until midnight. The Beast King used all his strength to control the demonic beasts to monitor the situation outside Azurewood City. Ji Tianqing did not wait any longer. He concealed his presence and flew into the sky, patrolling as fast as lightning. Unknowingly, an hour passed. The bright moon rose to the sky, sprinkling down endless bright moonlight. Ji Tianqing flew high in the sky. He used the Pure Heart Demon Suppression Art and opened his Pure Heart Dharma Eye. Suddenly, he detected 2 faintly discernible flowing lights in the sky in the northwest direction. They were as fast as a gust of wind, flying through the night sky, heading straight for Azurewood City. Seeing this scene, his spirit was suddenly shaken, and a glimmer of light appeared in his eyes. They're finally here. The 4th update had been delivered. It was the end of the month. He had to work hard for a few days to repay his brothers for their long-term support. Chapter 787. Ji Tianqing could vaguely see the figures of powerful experts flying towards Cyanwood City within the 2 streaks of light. However, he was over 30 miles away from the 2 streams of light. He couldn't see how many people there were. He could only see that they were very careful. They were trying their best to hide their qi and spiritual energy. Otherwise, when a heaven origin stage cultivator flew in the night sky with a pair of wings, they would be like a lighthouse in the dark. Humph! Finally, you are here. Ji Tianqing sneered and sped up to fly over. At the same time, a tall man in white robe flew out from the woods on his side. It was the Beast King. Apparently, he had noticed the streams of light in the night sky too. He followed Ji Tianqing to the northwest. The 2 of them concealed their auras and flew towards each other at the speed of light. The distance between the 2 of them quickly shrank. When the 2 of them had flown 30 li away and were only a dozen li away from the other party, they could clearly see the figures of 2 experts within the 2 streams of light. The 2 sky origin stage cultivators looked different. They were dressed differently. The one on the left was wearing a black robe, while the one on the right was wearing a purple robe and a cape. They were both middle-aged men. They were tall and strong. Their eyes were bright and deep. They were dressed like ordinary cultivators. They didn't look very eye-catching. However, they were naturally emitting a fierce and valiant aura. They looked majestic and powerful. That was something that ordinary cultivators couldn't imitate. The man in the black robe was at the 6th level of Sky Origin Stage. The man in the purple robe was at the 7th level of Sky Origin Stage. Ji Tianqing was sure that he had found the right people. These 2 men should be the guards who were responsible for escorting the talisman, the 3rd prince's trusted subordinates. In the blink of an eye, Ji Tianqing and the Beast King were only over 10 miles away from the 2 commander of the royal guards. The 2 commander of the royal guards were alerted. They noticed Ji Tianqing and the Beast King too. The 2 of them suddenly turned their heads to look at Ji Tianqing and the Beast King. Their eyes flashed with a cold light, revealing a strong sense of wariness and hostility. The 2 of them secretly communicated with each other using their soul sense. Then, they sped up and flew towards the Greenwood City without meeting Ji Tianqing and the other man. However, the 2 of them were still unsure of Ji Tianqing and the Beast King's intentions. However, they acted cautiously and didn't want to provoke any trouble, so they decided to avoid it. However, Ji Tianqing had already planned this for a long time. So how could he possibly allow them to escape into Cyanwood City? Shwa! Without any hesitation, he used his trump card and summoned his sword embryo. Riding on his sword, he chased after Yi Futian at his fastest speed. In a short span of a dozen breaths, Ji Tianqing caught up with the two imperial bodyguard commanders and blocked their path. The two guards were forced to stop and stared coldly at Ji Tianqing. The black-robed man quietly held the hilt of the sword at his waist and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you? Why are you blocking our way?" Ji Tianqing didn't waste any time and casually made up a reason in an arrogant tone. "I opened this mountain and planted this tree. If you want to pass through, I'll take your life." He bellowed furiously and immediately waved his palms. He performed a unique sword technique and charged towards the two bodyguard commanders without any explanation. Golden slash. Along with his angry roar, his palms released a vast amount of vital essence, which condensed into a 100-meter-long, dazzling golden giant sword and slashed toward the two bodyguard commanders. The two guards were dumbfounded on the spot. They stared at Ji Tianqing dumbfoundedly and still couldn't come back to their senses. Who the hell is this guy? He didn't even explain clearly, and he's already fighting with his life? Damn it, where did this bandit come from? Is this a robbery? He's simply trying to kill us. Usually when bandits jumped out, they would say that line. But the purpose of bandits was to rob. Which bandit would be like Ji Tianqing? He was clearly trying to kill them. Besides, this place was only 100 miles away from Greenwood City. It was within the sphere of influence of the Duanmu family. How could there be bandits here? The two guards were not stupid. They immediately realized that Ji Tianqing was deliberately targeting them and specifically ambushing them here. "Little bastard, you're courting death. How dare you attack us? You're tired of living." The two guards came back to their senses and cursed angrily. They immediately drew their long swords and sabers and launched a counterattack with all their strength. They both burst out with 100% of their strength and slashed out a sky full of sabers and sword shadows to block the attack of the golden slash. Bang, bang, bang. The Metal Emperor's slash came down from the sky and mercilessly struck the saber light and sword radiance that filled the sky. A deafening sound echoed in the night sky. However, the two guards had underestimated Ji Tianqing's strength. Although the sabers and sword shadows that they had unleashed with all their strength were powerful and terrifying, they could not withstand the violent attack of the golden slash. In the blink of an eye, the invincible Metal Emperor slash shattered the countless saber lights and sword lights, turning them into fragments that scattered in all directions. The power of the golden slash was not reduced at all. In a split second, it hit the man in the black robe. Bang! The man in the black robe could not dodge in time and was sent flying by the golden slash that could split heaven and earth. He rolled and fell into the night sky thousands of meters away. His protective ethereal force and the soft armor that he was wearing were shattered on the spot. A half-meter-long gash appeared on his chest and abdomen. The gash was so deep that his bones could be seen. Hot blood spurted out and bloomed into a dark red flower in the night sky. It was very eye-catching. The extreme pain made the man in the black robe break out in cold sweat and tremble. However, his willpower was amazing. He could endure the pain without screaming. He gritted his teeth and did not make a sound. After flying thousands of meters, he steadied himself and flapped his ethereal force wings to stop in the night sky. Despicable little bastard. How can you have such terrifying strength? Who are you? Why are you our enemy? The man in the black robe glared at Ji Tianqing and asked in a cold and bitter voice. However, he was destined to not get an answer. The Beast King arrived just in time. He drew his sword and attacked him fiercely. The man in the black robe could only suppress his anger and confusion. He fought the Beast King with all his strength. The two of them fought in the night sky. Both of them gave it their all and used their trump cards. They wanted to kill each other as quickly as possible. The Beast King's strength and skills were weaker than the man in the black robe. He was not as fierce and good at fighting as the man in the black robe. However, the man in the black robe had been hit by Ji Tianqing's sword. He was seriously injured and his combat strength was reduced by 30%. The Beast King fought him with all his might and was actually able to fight him to a standstill. They were evenly matched. Neither of them could kill the other in a short period of time. However, it was also impossible for the man in the black robe to escape. To Ji Tianqing, this was the result that he had expected. Chapter 788. While the Beast King and the black-robed man were fighting, Ji Tianqing launched a fierce attack on the purple-robed man. The purple-robed man was at the 7th level of Sky Origin stage. He was also wearing a cloak to hide his face. His chi was also more powerful. Ji Tianqing could tell that this man was the leader of the two guards. If so, the talisman of control was most likely on him. In order to end the battle quickly, he didn't even try to test the opponent. He used his best skill right from the start. White Tiger Sacred Sword. Ji Tianqing shouted angrily. His body glowed with golden light. His body merged with the golden light and turned into a huge golden sword that was over 100 meters long. The huge sword was burning with golden flames and turned into a sacred white tiger. It pierced through the night sky and pierced towards the purple-robed man. Ji Tianqing was at the peak of the 6th level of Sky Origin stage. He was only one step away from the 7th level. Now that he was attacking with all his strength, he was as powerful as a cultivator at the 9th level of Sky Origin stage. The power of the White Tiger Sacred Sword was extremely horrifying. It could destroy the heaven and earth. When the White Tiger Sacred Sword pierced through the night sky and reached the purple-robed man, his expression changed drastically. He opened his eyes wide in astonishment. This man is only at the 6th level of Sky Origin stage. How can he use such a horrifying sword skill? How is this possible? This thought flashed through the purple-robed man's mind. He was indescribably shocked and horrified. He couldn't even think about blocking or dissolving the attack. He used his secret skill to run away without hesitation. 5 Chi's Unification. The purple-robed man waved his hands and activated all his martial arts. He used the 5 Chi's Unification to temporarily increase his fighting power. All of a sudden, the 5 Chi's Unification doubled his fighting power. He was almost at the 8th level of Sky Origin stage. Dark Shadow Escape. He shouted angrily again and used an upper-grade Sky Origin stage secret skill. It was the Dark Shadow Escape skill. It was used for escaping and assassination. When he used Dark Shadow Escape, his tall and burly body immediately turned into a hazy shadow, as if he had merged with the darkness of the night. Shwa! His figure flickered twice and teleported 100 meters away. He narrowly dodged the White Tiger Sacred Sword's attack and brushed past it. Phew! The purple-robed man had experienced the thrill of walking through the gates of hell. He let out a long sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. However, he thought that he was lucky enough to keep his life. Just as his mind relaxed, he suddenly realized that he was wrong. Big mistake. The White Tiger Sacred Sword, which had already missed its target, had actually locked onto his aura. Suddenly, it changed direction and charged towards him with an even more violent and overbearing momentum. The White Tiger Phantom wrapped around the giant golden sword also extended its huge sharp claws and opened its bloody mouth, pouncing towards him with a momentum that could suppress heaven and earth. The purple-robed man was in despair. His face was pale and his heart was dead. He had just used the 5 Chi Unification secret technique to forcefully double his strength, and then used the Shadow Escape secret technique. At this moment, his true essence was lacking, and his strength was empty. It was absolutely impossible for him to use it again. He could only look on helplessly as the White Tiger Sacred Sword slashed towards him. He had no chance to dodge at all. Bang! Amidst a deafening explosion, the White Tiger Sacred Sword pierced through him, engulfing his figure. His true essence protective armor and the armor he wore were as fragile as porcelain under the terrifying might of the White Tiger Sacred Sword. With a kachap sound, the true essence protective armor and the armor collapsed and shattered. His body was also split into 2 halves by the White Tiger Sacred Sword. Blood splattered all over the sky. Until the moment of his death, the purple-robed man still couldn't figure out who that white-robed youth was. This person was only at the 6th level of the Sky Origin stage. How could he use such a terrifying, peerless sword art that could erupt with the might of a 9th-level Sky Origin stage expert? The purple-robed man didn't even have time to think about these questions. He didn't even have time to scream before he was instantly killed by the White Tiger Sacred Sword. The 2 halves of his corpse fell from the night sky, spraying a dark red rain of blood. Under the illumination of the dazzling golden light, it was especially shocking. Swish! The light of the White Tiger Sacred Sword suddenly disappeared. Ji Tianqing's figure appeared. He was still in his white robe, untainted by a speck of dust. His expression was calm and composed. Although this White Tiger Sacred Sword was his ultimate move with all his strength, it instantly killed the 7th-level Sky Origin stage purple-robed commander. But he didn't use too much true essence to use this sword art. To him, instantly killing a 7th-level Sky Origin stage expert who didn't have any protective treasures was just a matter of flicking his finger. It was a piece of cake. He stood in the night sky and looked down at his feet. He saw the two halves of the purple-robed commander's corpse falling into the forest. Thus, he waved his hand and shot out a giant palm condensed from golden light. He caught the two halves of the corpse and brought it back. At the same time, the little black dragon flew over from afar like a shooting star. Ji Tianxing casually tossed the purple-robed commander's corpse to the little black dragon, allowing it to carry it back to the temporary stronghold on the mountain peak. After the little black dragon carried the corpse away, he turned his head to look at the night sky to his right. 10 miles away, the Beast King was still fighting fiercely with the black-robed commander. Both of them were heavily injured. Blood flowed from their bodies, but they were still locked in battle. Ji Tianxing's lips curled into a cold smile. He hurriedly rushed over. He concealed his aura and silently approached the battlefield. While the black-robed commander was unprepared, he brazenly used his ultimate move. Crimson Dragon Flash. He waved his hands and released a 20-meter-long flaming sword. He blasted it towards the black-robed commander's back. The black-robed commander was in the middle of fighting the Beast King. He was caught off guard by the sneak attack from behind. He was immediately frightened. His eyes flashed with anxiety and fear. He instinctively dodged to the side. He waved his sword and sent out a few giant sword rays. He wanted to block the attack of the Crimson Dragon Flash. However, the Crimson Dragon Flash easily destroyed the sword rays and hit him in an instant. Bang! The black-robed commander's body was immediately pierced through by the Crimson Dragon Flash. A large bloody hole the size of a washbasin appeared in his chest. His internal organs were destroyed. His skin and flesh were charred black. He died in an instant. The battle was finally over. The Beast King breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Tianxing, you acted in time. Otherwise, I would have to exchange more than 100 moves with him before I could defeat him. This place is not far from Azurewood City. If we don't end this quickly, I'm afraid our battle will alarm the powerhouses of Azurewood City. Ji Tianxing nodded. He stretched out his hand and sent out a giant golden palm. He grabbed the black-robed commander's corpse. Senior Beast King, we don't have much time. Let's go. With that, he led the Beast King and flew back to the temporary stronghold on the mountain peak. When the two of them returned to the stronghold, the little black dragon had already brought back the purple-robed commander's corpse. Ji Tianxing, the Beast King, and Yan hurriedly checked the corpses of the two guard commanders. They searched their bodies for the whereabouts of the Soul Control Talisman. Everyone searched the corpses of the two commanders, but found nothing. Chapter 789. After the purple-robed commander died, the interspatial ring became an ownerless item. Ji Tianxing used a little effort to open the interspatial ring. The space in the interspatial ring was not big. It was only 10 meters wide, like a secret room. It was filled with all kinds of things. Most of them were high-grade spirit stones of higher quality, all kinds of elixirs and materials, and some weapons and equipment. Ji Tianxing did a rough count and was filled with shock. He sighed in his heart. This purple-robed commander was the third prince's right-hand man. He served the third prince for many years and accumulated such rich resources and wealth. Damn bastard, he's even richer than me. There are more than 20,000 spirit stones. All kinds of elixirs, talismans, and materials are worth at least 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. Ji Tianxing's interspatial ring only had more than 20,000 spirit stones. Compared to the purple-robed commander, it was pitifully shabby. He did not hesitate to take all the resources and wealth for himself and put them into his interspatial ring. Finally, he found a round treasure box the size of a cattail leaf fan under a pile of jade bottles containing elixirs. The treasure box was a supreme-grade divine artifact. It was simple in design and exuded a mysterious aura. Ji Tianxing took out the black treasure box and looked at it in his palm for a moment. He felt that this treasure box was not simple. He checked it and found that the treasure box was sealed with an array. It was difficult for ordinary powerhouses to open it. However, he spent an hour to crack the array and successfully open the treasure box. Swoosh! The moment the treasure box was opened, a dazzling green light lit up in the box and illuminated the entire cave. He saw a dark green jade slip lying silently within the treasure box. The jade slip was as long as a palm, but only half a palm wide. It was beautifully designed. The surface was engraved with talisman patterns and exuded a mysterious and powerful energy wave. Ji Tianqing vaguely felt that the origin of this jade slip was extraordinary and its power was very mysterious. However, he still had some doubts and muttered in a low voice, "Why is it a jade slip? Is it not a talisman?" Yen stared at the dark cyan jade slip and observed it for a moment. Her eyes revealed a look of pleasant surprise as she hurriedly explained, "Senior brother Tianqing, this is the divine talisman we're looking for." The divine talisman that the third prince had refined using that divine weapon was, of course, different from ordinary talismans. Heavenly origin talismans can still be made with talisman paper, but soul-level talismans are equivalent to magic treasures. They must be refined with jade slips in order to withstand the mysterious and powerful talisman power. Ji Tianqing didn't know much about the Tao of talismans. After listening to Yen Er's explanation, he suddenly understood. "I see. Then let's not waste any more time. Yen hurry up and get moving." "Okay, senior brother Tianqing, please wait for a moment." Yen nodded, carefully took out the soul control talisman, and hurriedly modified it. Ji Tianqing didn't stay idle either. He hurriedly used a secret technique to disguise himself as the purple-robed commander. When the Beast King saw him doing this, he immediately guessed his intentions. He asked worriedly, "Tianqing, are you really going to infiltrate the Duanmu clan? Aren't you afraid of being seen through by the Duanmu Huang? Moreover, there are 2 people escorting the divine talisman. If you go to the Duanmu clan alone, you will definitely be exposed. How about this? I will pretend to be the black-robed commander and accompany you." Ji Tianqing hesitated for a moment and hurriedly dissuaded, "Senior Beast King, I am already very grateful that you have helped me to this extent. How can I let you take the risk with me? Don't say any more. I have made up my mind." The Beast King waved his sleeves and said with a solemn face, "Even if my life is in danger, I will accompany you." "Okay, thank you for your help." Ji Tianqing solemnly thanked him and didn't try to persuade him anymore. He wouldn't talk about the Beast King's help. He would only remember it in his heart and slowly repay it in the future. Soon, 2 hours passed, and it was almost midnight. At this time, Yen finally completed the modification of the soul control talisman. He didn't change the power of the soul control talisman and still maintained the effect of the soul control talisman. It could slow down the devouring of the divine venomous insect. However, he added 3 types of talisman power to the soul control talisman. Its power was very terrifying, but it was very hidden. As long as the Duanmu Huang absorbed the power of the soul control talisman, the 3 types of talisman power would enter his soul. Then, the 3 types of talisman power would cause a chain reaction and completely explode, severely injuring the Duanmu Huang's soul. After he modified the soul control talisman, it looked no different from before. He put the soul control talisman back into the round treasure box and returned it to Ji Tianqing. At the same time, Ji Tianqing and the Beast King also finished their disguises. Their figures and appearances were very similar to the 2 commanders. In order to not expose any flaws, the 2 of them wore a purple robe and a black robe. Ji Tianqing wore a cloak, and the Beast King was still holding the black-robed commander's sword. As long as one wasn't very familiar with the 2 commanders, it would be very difficult to see any flaws in a short time. "Okay, it's done." Ji Tianqing adjusted his large cloak and covered his entire face. He said in a serious tone, "Yen you guys stay here and wait for our news. Be ready to receive us at any time. It's already midnight. The Duanmu Huang must be waiting anxiously. Senior Beast King and I will go to the Duanmu family now. If there's anything unusual, we'll notify each other with a signal arrow." After he finished speaking, Ji Tianqing and the Beast King left the cave stronghold and flew across the night sky like a stream of light, rushing toward Greenwood City. Yen White Ape, and Qian Yu stayed in the cave and waited for orders. 100 miles north of Greenwood City was Duanmu Manor. It was midnight. A full moon hung high in the night sky, sprinkling down bright moonlight for hundreds of millions of miles. The bright moon was high in the sky, and the sky was full of stars. The night scene was infinitely beautiful. However, the atmosphere in Duanmu Manor was heavy and solemn, making people feel deeply depressed and sad. Of course, it wasn't only tonight that was like this. For more than a month before this, since the Duanmu family's herb garden was destroyed and their power fell drastically, the manor was filled with such an atmosphere. For nearly a month, there were many bad news that came back to the Duanmu family every day. Cloud Spirit Palace and other forces were pressing on, adding insult to injury and looting a burning house, causing the Duanmu family's situation to become more and more dangerous. Bad news kept on coming, and all kinds of rumors were flying everywhere. The internal strife in the manor continued, and the Duanmu Huang even ruthlessly killed a group of rebels. Even so, the Duanmu Huang's ruthless methods couldn't intimidate everyone. The Duanmu family's morale was slack, and the situation was already so chaotic that it was hard to control. Everyone knew that the big tree that was the Duanmu clan was about to collapse. Who would be able to save their lives? Every day there were people escaping, leaving the Duanmu family and Greenwood City, only hoping to extend their lives and survive. The Duanmu family was gradually reaching the end of their rope. They were already an arrow at the end of its flight. However, at this time, the Duanmu Huang had no choice but to go into seclusion and hide in the secret cultivation room. There was no other way. The 3-month deadline was up. Chapter 790. Inside the Duanmu Manor. Deep under the ground of the Central Palace's main hall, there was a secret training room with top-secret defense. This secret room was the Duanmu Huang's special training room. It was protected by a soul-level formation and could be said to be impregnable. The spacious secret room with a radius of 100 meters was like a spacious hall. It was decorated magnificently and extremely extravagantly. The floor was paved with top-grade gold and jade stones. The walls were made with top-grade spiritual jade, and all kinds of formations were set up. The surrounding walls were inlaid with all kinds of precious and rare gems. They could not only provide a bright brilliance, but also provide a steady flow of spiritual energy. A thick layer of 5-colored spiritual mist floated in the air. It would even condense into spiritual liquid and drip into a pool in the corner of the secret room. That 5-colored pool made with top-grade spiritual jade was Duanmu Huang's spiritual liquid pool. At this moment, Duanmu Huang was sitting cross-legged in the spiritual liquid pool. He was doing his best to heal himself and suppress the power of the divine venomous insect in his spirit. He was wearing a pair of dark green trousers. His feet and upper body were bare. His long hair was spread out and covered his face. His skin was dark red like fire, as if it was about to burn. His body temperature was terrifyingly high. The spiritual liquid in the pool evaporated into steam. Under his skin, there were countless earthworm-like bulges. They were moving through his flesh and causing his body to constantly twist and change shape. Even his entire face was as red as fire, as if blood was about to seep out. His eyes were closed, but his eyeballs were bulging. Black blood kept flowing out of his nostrils, ears, and the corners of his mouth. His spirit was being eroded by the divine venomous insect. He was being tortured by unparalleled pain. However, he clenched his teeth so hard that they were bleeding. He didn't make a sound. However, the divine venomous insect's power had reached its peak and was crazily devouring his spirit. The extreme pain made Duanmu Huang feel as if 10,000 insects were devouring his spirit. He finally raised his head and let out a heart-wrenching scream. He held his head with both hands and shook it crazily. He shook his long hair with all his might, causing the spiritual liquid pool to churn and waves to rise. At this moment, he only had one kind of feeling, as if there were countless ants and insects in his head, crazily gnawing at his brain matter and brain matter. Moreover, the extreme pain came from the depths of his soul, and it was impossible to isolate or alleviate it. This was the cruelest torture in the world. Long Zai Tian. You bastard. Despicable bastard. Trash. Bastard. I'll kill you. I'm going to kill you, you bitch. The extreme pain made Duanmu Huang so angry that he almost lost his mind. He madly roared and cursed. His eyes were as red as fire, and dark red blood continuously gushed out. His entire body was surging with dark red blood flames. Those were the blood flames of his burning flesh and blood, roasting the entire pool of spirit liquid until it was boiling and rolling. He was filled with fury, hatred, and venom. His hatred for the third prince had reached its peak. If the third prince had not used a Gu Dao divine weapon and spent several years to secretly plant a divine Gu in him, how could he have ended up like this? How could he possibly bow his head to the third prince and willingly listen to the third prince's orders? For the past few years, the divine Gu in his body would act up every 3 months, crazily devouring his soul. However, he had tried everything, even using the Duanmu family's ancestral magic treasure, but he could not resolve it. Because of this, his strength had been stuck at the 5th level of the spirit-tempering realm for many years. Ever since he had been poisoned by the divine goo, his greatest wish was to increase his strength and reach the primordial soul realm, becoming a supreme expert. Only by reaching the primordial soul realm and condensing a primordial soul dharma form could he possibly get rid of the divine goo in his soul. Of course, it was only a possibility. Ah! Why isn't he here yet? Duanmu Huang struggled in extreme pain. Blood kept gushing out of his 7 orifices, dyeing the pool of spirit liquid red. He could not help but roar at the door of the secret chamber, questioning the guard outside the door why the person who was supposed to escort the soul control talisman had not arrived yet. If he did not use the divine talisman to alleviate the power of the divine goo, more than half of his soul would be devoured. His strength would be extremely weak, and he might even fall from the spirit-tempering realm. If he did not receive the help of the divine talisman within 3 days, his soul would be completely devoured, and he would die completely. How could Duanmu Huang not be anxious, his heart burning with worry? Outside the door of the secret room, there was a burly man in a purple robe who was standing respectfully. He was Xing Jian, the hall master of the soul-herding hall, Duanmu Huang's absolute confidant. Only a few people in the Duanmu family knew that Duanmu Huang had been poisoned by the divine goo and was secretly controlled by the 3rd prince. Xing Jian was one of them. Every 3 months, when the divine goo acted up, Duanmu Huang would enter the secret chamber to cultivate for a night. Xing Jian would guard outside the secret chamber and not allow anyone to come in and disturb him. In addition, he had to wait for the 3rd prince's confidant to deliver the soul control talisman to Duanmu Huang. Xing Jian was calculating the time. It was almost midnight, and he was secretly anxious. When he heard Duanmu Huang's angry roar from the secret chamber, he was embarrassed. He quickly replied respectfully, "Master, I don't know why. Please bear with it, bastard. What are you waiting for? Go and send a message to ask him." Duanmu Huang's angry roar came from the secret chamber again. "Yes, master." Xing Jian did not dare to disobey the order. He quickly turned and left. He wanted to send a message to ask the Lord what was going on. After all, this was a serious matter, and he could not afford to make any mistakes. Xing Jian quickly passed through the underground tunnel and walked to the door at the end of the tunnel. Just as he was about to open the stone door at the end of the tunnel, the stone door suddenly opened. 2 Heaven Origin Stage cultivators walked in, followed by a series of muffled clanking noises. The 2 of them walked side by side. One of them was wearing a purple robe and a cape, while the other was wearing a black robe and a sword. They were both at the 5th and 6th level of the Sky Origin Stage. They were emitting an overbearing aura, and their eyes were as cold as the night sky. Xing Jian was familiar with them. When he saw them walk in through the stone door, he let out a breath of relief. "Phew! My lords, you are finally here. You are always on time. Why are you late by 4 hours? Our master can't wait any longer." Xing Jian was worried. He couldn't help but ask for the reason. However, the purple-robed leader coldly glanced at him and said indifferently, "What? Are you blaming us for not doing our job well?" Xing Jian froze. He hurriedly bowed and apologized. "Please don't be angry, master. I would never dare to disrespect you." Even though Xing Jian's strength was higher than the 2 Lord Commanders, Xing Jian's strength was still higher. However, the 2 leaders were the Lord's confidants. They were in high positions. Even if Xing Jian had a few guts, he would not dare to offend the 2 commanders. Seeing him apologize, the purple-robed commander snorted coldly and walked towards the door of the secret chamber. Xing Jian hurriedly followed them to the door of the secret chamber. Chapter 791. Hearing the purple-robed commander's words, Xing Jian was stunned. In the past, when these 2 commanders handed the treasure box to him, they did not say such things. The leading purple-robed commander would always say, "The divine talisman is here. Hurry and give it to the Duanmu family leader." After that, the purple-robed commander would add a few more words. "My lord asked me to pass a message to the Duanmu family leader. Don't worry. As long as the Duanmu family does their best, my lord will remember the Duanmu family's contributions. In the future, when my lord completes his grand plan, the Duanmu family will be greatly rewarded. The Duanmu family leader will also become one of the most respected leaders of the human race." Xing Jian knew that this was just an empty promise from the Lord. However, the Lord would at least treat the Duanmu Huang with kindness and authority. He would promise great benefits and power to appease the Duanmu family. Xing Jian had heard these words dozens of times. He did not take it to heart. However, tonight was different. The purple-robed commander's words were very short. He only passed the divine talisman to Xing Jian and did not say anything else. Xing Jian was a little confused. A thought flashed through his mind. Why is this lord not passing a message? Why is his attitude so cold? Could it be that my lord is very disappointed in the Duanmu family and wants to give up? Xing Jian became even more anxious and worried. However, when he heard the Duanmu Huang's roars and screams coming from the secret room, he did not dare to delay any longer. He quickly activated the secret room's array formation and opened the heavy stone door. Along with a muffled rumbling sound, the 10-meter-tall heavy stone door slowly rose. Xing Jian held the treasure box with the divine talisman with both hands. He quickly walked into the secret room and went straight to the spirit liquid pool in the southeast corner. Master, the divine talisman has been delivered. Xing Jian's tone was filled with joy. He quickly ran to the spirit liquid pool and presented the treasure box with both hands. The Duanmu Huang, who was rolling in pain in the spirit liquid pool, was overjoyed. He was like a person who was about to die of thirst who saw water, or a person who fell into the water who saw a piece of driftwood. He waved his arms crazily and snatched the treasure box like a dog pouncing on its prey. He opened the treasure box and took out the divine talisman. At this moment, the Duanmu Huang was already in so much pain that he wished he was dead. His consciousness was a little blurry. He did not even want to look at the divine talisman. He held the dark green jade slip with both hands and cast spells to absorb the power of the divine talisman. Swish! Swish! The dark green talisman immediately lit up with a dazzling green light, enveloping Duanmu Huang's entire body. The green light, which was filled with mysterious power, turned into a stream of air that resembled a spirit snake. It surged madly into Duanmu Huang's head and burrowed into his soul. The Duanmu Huang's, the divine talisman. Swish! 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 Come! Swish! Swish! Duan swish! Xing Jian hurriedly bowed and left, not daring to stay in the secret chamber. This was the rule set by Duanmu Huang. When he was using the talisman to suppress the divine talisman, no one was allowed to stay in the secret room to avoid disturbing him. Once he had finished absorbing the power of the talisman, he would throw the dim talisman out of the secret room for the two commanders to take away. Swish! Swish! These two commanders are a little strange. They don't even care about the rules? Is the Lord really going to give up on the Duanmu family? Even the commanders of his guards dare to be so presumptuous? Swish! 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 Duanmu Huang had already absorbed 80% of the power of the talisman. The light from the dark green jade slip had also dimmed. His pain had been alleviated and he no longer groaned in pain. However, his flesh and blood were still red. He was still bleeding from his 7 orifices. He still looked hideous. Even if the talisman could alleviate the power of the divine talisman, it would still take at least a night. After Duanmu Huang had finished absorbing the power of the talisman, he still had to cultivate in seclusion for a whole night in the secret room. Only then would he be able to completely remove the corrosion of the divine talisman. For some reason, he felt that the two commanders were a little strange. However, he couldn't tell what the problem was. Swish! 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 Duanmu Huang, who had calmed down, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Swish! The dark red, scorching blood condensed into an arrow and hit the wall of the secret room with a bang. Before the crowd could react to what was going on, there was a loud boom in Duanmu Huang's head. At that moment, Duanmu Huang's head swelled and became bigger. Blood spurted out of his mouth, nose, and ears. His eyeballs also popped out. His left eyeball actually protruded out of its socket and was stuck on his face by the flesh and blood. This was real blood spurting out of his 7 orifices. Duanmu Huang looked as if he had been struck by lightning. His body stiffened like a stone statue, and he fell straight into the pool of spiritual liquid. He didn't die on the spot. However, his breathing was chaotic and extremely weak. There was still an extremely violent power in his body that kept exploding. Swish! 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 He didn't dare to watch the process every time Duanmu Huang went into seclusion to devour the talisman. However, he was very clear that this wouldn't happen under normal circumstances. Something must have happened to Duanmu Huang. And something big had happened. When they saw Duanmu Huang bleeding from his 7 orifices and fainting, they immediately revealed a look of surprise and excitement. Clearly, the 3 talismans that added to the talisman had taken effect. Duanmu Huang was caught off guard and immediately fell into the trap. His soul exploded and he was seriously injured. Blood spurted out of his 7 orifices and his power was chaotic. This was the best time to kill him. The 2 commanders were stunned for a moment before they immediately recovered. They seized the opportunity and decisively attacked. The purple-robed commander was Ji Tianqing in disguise. He decisively took out the sword embryo in his body and used all his strength to attack Swish. Sword of Judgment. The dazzling golden sword embryo transformed into a 3-meter-long golden sword and instantly pierced Xing Jian's chest. Before Xing Jian could react, the golden sword pierced through his chest and nailed him to the stone wall. "You! How dare you! Damn it!" Xing Jian widened his eyes in shock as he stared at Ji Tianqing. His eyes were filled with fear and disbelief. Chapter 792. Xing Jian had noticed the strange behavior of the 2 commanders and felt that something was amiss. However, he thought that the Duanmu family had fallen, and the other party was looking down on them. That was why they were so rude. However, he did not expect that the family head Duanmu Huang would suddenly bleed from all 7 orifices, and that the 2 commanders would suddenly attack. He was not prepared at all, and was pinned to the wall by Ji Tianqing. He finally regained his senses and glared at Ji Tianqing and the Beast King, who were disguised as the black-robed commanders. He shouted in a hoarse voice, "Why are you so ruthless? Are you going to burn the bridge after crossing it? No, you are imposters." Xing Jian finally realized that something was amiss and guessed the reason. The corner of Ji Tianqing's mouth curled into a sneer as he said in a sinister tone, "Haha, you found out too late." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his right hand and pulled out the golden sword that was pinned to Xing Jian's chest. A fist-sized bloody hole immediately appeared on Xing Jian's chest. Blood gushed out of the hole. The wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. One could clearly see the white bones and organs inside. Although the sword did not kill Xing Jian on the spot, it had severely injured him. Blood kept gushing out of his mouth. He staggered 2 steps forward, and his body was on the verge of collapsing. He hurriedly circulated his energy to suppress his injuries. At this moment, the Beast King had already pulled out his sword and pounced on him like a ferocious tiger. He waved his sword and a few dazzling rays of light shot out. Ji Tianqing also controlled the sword embryo and rushed into the secret chamber at lightning speed. He charged toward Duanmu Huang, who was in the pool of spiritual liquid. Compared to Xing Jian, Duanmu Huang's life was more important. To him, the lives of all the Duanmu family members added together were not as important as Duanmu Huang's life. "Be careful, family head." When Xing Jian saw Ji Tianqing rushing into the secret chamber, he sensed that something was wrong. He shouted anxiously to remind Duanmu Huang to be careful. In the next moment, he was struck by the Beast King's sword ray, and a few more bloody holes appeared on his body. His injuries were even more severe. He no longer cared about Ji Tianqing and hurriedly dodged the Beast King's assassination attempt, fleeing in panic. At this point, he was already heavily injured, and his combat strength had been greatly weakened. So it was useless for him to stay. He risked his life to break through the obstruction of the Beast King. He only wanted to rush out of the underground tunnel and report to the guards of the Duanmu clan. Even if he died, it didn't matter. As long as the guards and elites of the Duanmu clan arrived in time, they would be able to kill the 2 fake commanders and avenge him. However, the underground passage was too narrow. Xing Jian's heart immediately burned with worry. He hurriedly used the earth escape technique, wanting to escape through the ground. However, the Beast King was already prepared for this. He waved his sword to block him and launched a violent attack. Xing Jian was forced to the point where he had nowhere to run. He could only defend with all his might. However, his injuries were too severe. After blocking a few moves from the Beast King, his neck was sliced off, and he died on the spot. Xing Jian's head was separated from his body, and his corpse fell to the ground with a plop. A dark red pillar of blood spurted out from his neck, and fresh blood splattered all over the ground. At the same time, Ji Tianqing had already rushed into the secret room. He controlled the Judgment Sword and brazenly attacked Duanmu Huang. Duanmu Huang fell into the pool of spiritual liquid. His body was stiff, and he seemed to have fainted. Blood kept spurting out from his 7 orifices, and the pool of spiritual liquid had already turned into a pool of blood. His entire body was also covered in blood. It looked like the indestructible judgment sword was about to pierce him. At this moment of life and death, Duanmu Huang suddenly jumped out from the pool of spiritual liquid. He raised his palms and clamped the judgment sword with a bang. The dazzling golden sword, which was extremely sharp, exploded with a terrifying force and sent Duanmu Huang flying out of the pool of spiritual liquid. He crashed heavily into the wall behind him. Bang! With a dull thud, Duanmu Huang crashed into the wall made of spiritual jade, creating a dent in it. Instantly, the secret room's defensive array was activated. A soul-level array appeared and condensed into a dark golden light shield, which enveloped the secret room within a radius of 100 meters. Only Ji Tianqing and Duanmu Huang were within the light shield of the array. Ji Tianqing stood in the middle of the secret room and looked at Duanmu Huang with a serious expression. He controlled the sword embryo to fly back into his body. Duanmu Huang stood by the wall of the secret room. His upper body was naked, and blood was flowing out from his body. He looked extremely miserable. He was bleeding from his 7 orifices, and his left eyeball was still hanging on his face. His long hair was disheveled, and blood kept dripping from it. At this moment, he looked like a ferocious demon, extremely ferocious and cruel. Ah! Despicable beast! How dare you tamper with the divine talisman? I'm going to kill you. Duanmu Huang cursed crazily as he waved his palms wildly. Dozens of flaming palm shadows were shot towards Ji Tianqing. Each of the flaming palms was as big as a millstone. Dozens of flaming palms came together and covered half of the secret room, drowning Ji Tianqing's figure. Bang, bang, bang. With a loud bang, Ji Tianqing was immediately sent flying backwards, crashing into the light shield of the array. The dark golden light shield was trembling from the impact, and layers of ripples appeared. Ji Tianqing used the Kenshin battle robe at the crucial moment, which transformed into a pair of golden wings. He used the ultimate technique of the golden rock wings. Fortunately, the Kenshin battle robe blocked most of the palm shadows. He was only pale from the impact, and his internal organs were in pain. He was panting heavily, but he wasn't injured. Outside the door of the secret room, the Beast King was worried when he saw Ji Tianqing being sent flying. He wanted to rush into the secret room to help, but he was blocked by the light shield of the array. Unless he could break the soul-level array, he could only stand outside and watch Ji Tianqing and Duanmu Huang fight. However, how could a soul-level array be broken by a divine prime powerhouse? The Beast King tried a few times, but not only did he not break the array, but he was also sent flying by the light shield. He crashed into the stone wall and was injured by the impact. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing quickly shouted, "Senior, don't worry about me. Go and send the signal." The Beast King was stunned, and he frowned hesitantly. He didn't want to delay his plan, and he didn't want Ji Tianqing to fight alone and put himself in danger. Ji Tianqing saw his hesitation and quickly shouted, "Quick! Don't worry about me. I'll be fine." The Beast King gritted his teeth and finally made up his mind. He warned seriously, "You must be careful. We'll be waiting for you." After saying that, he stomped his foot and rushed out of the underground tunnel like a flash of light. When he opened the door of the tunnel, he regained his calm and arrogant look and walked out unhurriedly. The guards guarding the entrance of the passageway were all somewhat puzzled. Why did only one commander come out? Where were Xing Jian and the other commander? However, they were lowly and didn't dare to ask, let alone stop the Beast King. After the Beast King quickly left Duanmu Manor, he found an empty corner and released a dark red signal arrow. This was the signal to attack. Chapter 793. Ji Tianqing and Duanmu Huang were confronting each other in the secret chamber covered by the soul-level formation. Just now, the two of them had already exchanged 3 blows. Ji Tianqing was sent flying 3 times in the 3 moves. Each time, he crashed into the dark golden light shield. Fortunately, he had the Sword God battle robe, which allowed him to protect himself and prevent him from suffering any serious injuries. Duanmu Huang still had the upper hand. Ji Tianqing's 3 moves were unable to hurt him. They stood at the north and south ends of the secret chamber with their backs against the dark golden light shield. They stared at each other coldly, and their bodies surged with a strong fighting spirit. Duanmu Huang pulled out the eyeball on his left face. Black blood flowed out of his eye socket. He had only one eye now and looked extremely ferocious. Little bastard. Who are you? How dare you pretend to be the Lord's trusted subordinate and come to Duanmu Manor to assassinate me? You have the guts to attack me with your Sky Origin stage strength. You really don't know your place. Duanmu Huang's only eye was filled with coldness. He stared at Ji Tianqing with resentment and shouted coldly, I'll give you a chance to live. Kneel down and beg for mercy, and tell me your identity. Otherwise, I'll skin you and pull out your tendons, tearing your flesh apart bit by bit. His words were gloomy and terrifying. His body was surrounded by bloody flames and his aura was as cold as a demon. However, Ji Tianqing was not afraid at all. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile as he said in a playful tone, Duanmu Huang, now that things have come to this, why are you still pretending to be calm and forcefully enduring the injury to your spirit? The more you pretend to be fierce, the more it proves that you're weak inside. You're panicking. You're just trying to scare me. Your soul has been swallowed by the divine venomous insect, and your strength has been weakened by at least 50%. The power of the 3 talismans in the soul control talisman exploded one after another and worsened the injury of your soul. It has weakened your strength by at least 20%. Now, you only have 30% of your power left. You're already at the end of your rope. Ji Tianqing exuded a confident aura. His tone was firm, and his face was filled with a sneer. Every single word of his was like a sharp sword that fiercely pierced Duanmu Huang's heart, causing Duanmu Huang's expression to go pale while monstrous rage surged within his eyes. Because what he said was right, it was the truth. At this moment, Duanmu Huang indeed only had 30% of his power left. He was extremely weak. He had to end the battle as soon as possible and immediately circulate his energy to heal himself. Only then would he be able to preserve the spirit that he had painstakingly cultivated for over 100 years. Otherwise, his injuries would continue to worsen, and his spiritual energy would continue to weaken. Even if he managed to survive tonight, he would have to go into seclusion to recuperate for decades before he could return to his peak strength. However, Ji Tianqing confidently exposed the truth and pointed out his injuries. How could he not be shocked and angry? Bastard! You despicable and shameless maggot! Who are you? Duanmu Huang roared furiously, and flames of anger appeared on top of his head. Ji Tianqing looked at him with a smile, and the sneer on his face became thicker. He said in a mocking tone, Haha, aren't you a soul-refining cultivator? You can't even see through my disguise? Looks like I guessed right. You're really at the end of your rope, and you only have 30% of your power left. Hearing what he said, Duanmu Huang was instantly enraged, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. It turned out that Ji Tianqing's confident words were purposely to trick him. In that situation just now, Ji Tianqing wasn't sure how serious his injuries were and how much power he had left. Bastard! You deserve to die 10,000 times. After you die, you'll go to the 18th level of hell. Duanmu Huang was so furious that he almost lost his mind. He screamed at the top of his lungs, Bastard! Even if I only have 30% of my power left, it's more than enough to kill you. Indeed, he was a level 5 soul-refining cultivator. Even if he only had 30% of his power left, he was still comparable to a level 1 soul-refining cultivator. It was indeed easy to kill a level 6 soul-refining cultivator. However, Ji Tianqing was definitely not an ordinary soul-refining cultivator. His potential was limitless, and his real combat power was shocking. Haha, more than enough to kill me? Then I'd like to see who's going to die here. Ji Tianqing grinned, revealing a confident sneer. Duanmu Huang was extremely furious. He didn't want to waste any more time with him. He waved his palms with all his might, pouring out endless true core and soul strength. Raging Dragon Strike. The terrifying 5-colored true core, mixed with the blazing white soul strength, condensed into a 10-meter-long raging dragon and blasted towards Ji Tianqing. The two of them were only 100 meters apart. The moment the raging dragon appeared, it was already in front of Ji Tianqing. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing didn't have time to dodge or counterattack. He could only rely on his instinct to close his golden wings and wrap himself up. Wings of the Golden Rock. Boom. In the deafening sound, the raging dragon hit Ji Tianqing hard and drowned him. He was blown away again and crashed into the dark golden light shield with a bang. The light barrier trembled from the impact, and dense cracks began to appear on its surface. Ji Tianqing's internal organs were also injured by the terrifying power. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned as pale as paper. The huge raging dragon disappeared, and his figure appeared. He was staggering. Damn it! Duanmu Huang, that old bastard. His soul strength has been severely injured, but he still has such powerful strength. Is this the power of a soul refinement realm warrior? How terrifying! These thoughts flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind, and his desire to increase his strength became more and more urgent. He also wanted to reach the soul refinement realm as soon as possible and become a transcendent. He wanted to control the wind and rain, and the power to shake heaven and earth. However, it was too far away to think about this now. The most important thing now was to survive Duanmu Huang's attack and find a chance to kill Duanmu Huang. Vermilion Bird Sacred Sword. Ji Tianqing roared angrily. His body ignited with red flames and condensed into a 10-meter-long flame sword. His whole body merged with the flame sword. Raging flames rose and condensed into a huge vermilion bird phantom. Swoosh! The vermilion bird sacred sword swept up an earth-shattering flame sword, filling up the entire secret room. With an overbearing manner, it charged towards Duanmu Huang. Ji Tianqing used all of his strength in this attack. He exploded with the most powerful combat strength. Duanmu Huang's expression changed. He furrowed his eyebrows, and a trace of shock and fear flashed through his only eye. This little bastard, with the strength of a Sky Origin Stage cultivator, he can explode with the combat strength of a Soul Refinement Realm cultivator. How can there be such a monster in this world? His chi feels familiar to me, as if I've seen it somewhere before. Could he be Ji Tianqing? Yes, he is Ji Tianqing. Only a monster like him can create such a miracle. At that moment, these thoughts flashed through Duanmu Huang's hazy mind, and he became much more awake. Chapter 794. When the vermilion bird sacred sword blasted toward Duanmu Huang had nowhere to hide. He dared not let his guard down in this life and death situation, so he activated his divine soul dharma eyes with all his might. Swish! 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 3 broken divine soul dharma eyes appeared behind Duanmu Huang out of thin air. They lit up with a dazzling white light and released a powerful divine soul power. The white light condensed into a light wall in front of Duanmu Huang, blocking the vermilion bird sacred sword's attack. Boom! Crack! With a deafening sound, the vermilion bird sacred sword hit the white light wall and burst into a red flame that soared into the sky. The flame was like a wave that swept over the secret chamber within 100 meters. The vermilion bird sacred sword shattered instantly, revealing Ji Tianqing's figure. He flew backward in a sorry state and fell on the edge of the secret chamber. The white light wall condensed by the divine soul dharma eyes was also shattered into thousands of pieces. The violent impact sent Duanmu Huang flying backward, crashing into the dark golden light barrier with a loud thud. A moment later, the red flame that filled the entire secret chamber dissipated. Ji Tianqing stood beside the secret chamber's wall with a pale face. His chest was heaving up and down rapidly, and the true essence in his body was surging violently. Duanmu Huang stood on the other side with an ugly expression. Countless cracks appeared on his skin, and blood kept dripping out. His injuries were more serious, and his divine soul's injuries were worsening uncontrollably. His strength was rapidly weakening, especially his divine soul dharma eyes. There were originally 5 of them, and they were still intact, shining with a white light, and were extremely mysterious and powerful. But now his divine soul was severely damaged. Only 3 of the 5 divine soul dharma eyes were left, and they were still incomplete. The light was dim, and the aura was very weak. Ji Tianqing, stop pretending. This king knows it's you. Duanmu Huang stared coldly at Ji Tianqing and shouted in a deep voice, "This king has already taken you seriously, but I still underestimated you. This king can't believe that you're so daring to fight this king face to face." Since his identity had been exposed, Ji Tianqing decided not to hide anymore. In order to maintain his disguise, he had to be distracted and waste a bit of his power. Shwa! Light flashed all over his body, and he reverted back to his original appearance. When he revealed his true appearance, Duanmu Huang's pupils constricted, and his entire body trembled with anger. "It really is you, you little bastard. No matter what, I will tear you to shreds tonight. Even the heavens can't save you." Duanmu Huang was so angry that he went berserk. He waved his palms wildly and released a destructive spiritual energy. Heaven and Earth Tyrant Dragon. Two 10-meter-long, 5-colored divine dragons appeared and pounced toward Ji Tianqing with an aura that seemed capable of destroying everything in its path. At the same time, the three divine soul Dharma eyes also released 3 white light beams, bombarding Ji Tianqing from different directions, blocking all his escape routes. Roar! At that moment, 2 divine dragons let out resounding dragon roars in the secret room, and 3 blazing white light pillars shot towards Ji Tianqing. His body was instantly enveloped, and he was about to be killed. When Duanmu Huang attacked, he was already prepared and took out his Dharma treasure, the Seal of Mountains and Rivers, in advance. Seal the mountains and rivers. Ji Tianqing shouted and waved his palms to release a majestic true core strength, which he poured into the Seal of Mountains and Rivers. Suddenly, the Seal of Mountains and Rivers expanded to a radius of 5 meters. It was like a golden house, enveloping him. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 5-colored divine dragons and 3 white light beams hit the Seal of Mountains and Rivers in an instant, and there was an earth-shattering sound. The loud sound echoed fiercely in the secret chamber, and there was a powerful sound wave. The incomparably violent strength chi exploded, and also wantonly rushed through the secret room. Although the secret chamber was protected by a soul-level array, it would not collapse for the time being. But the dark golden light shield could not withstand such a terrifying force, and there were many cracks on it. The entire secret chamber shook violently, and even the ground above the secret chamber shook violently. The lofty palace in the middle of the Duanmu mansion shook violently, and there was a creaking sound, as if there was an earthquake. Countless people were awakened. They felt the ground shaking, and there was a rumbling sound coming from underground. Their faces changed, and their hearts were filled with doubt and worry. The Duanmu mansion, which was originally quiet and dark, was quickly lit up with countless lights. Hundreds of patrolling guards immediately rushed to the vicinity of the Central Palace main hall to see what was going on. There were also many disciples and servants of the Duanmu family who were awakened. They were discussing in fear and running around to spread the news. The Duanmu family had been shrouded in an oppressive atmosphere for a long time. Many people were like birds startled by the twang of a bow, and they were on tenterhooks all day long. Now that there was an abnormal sound coming from underground, it instantly caused a commotion. There was a hubbub of voices, and it was chaotic. Therefore, the elders and leaders of the Duanmu family immediately jumped out and tried to find excuses to appease the panicked Duanmu family members. Some people who took the opportunity to spread rumors were forcefully suppressed by the elders and captured. However, loud sounds like muffled thunder kept coming from underground, and the ground shook more and more violently. There was also a violent true origin energy that spread out. Even a fool would know that something was wrong. There were definitely experts fighting in the underground. This time, the thousands of people of the Duanmu family were completely alarmed, and there was chaos. Even if the elders and leaders suppressed with all their strength, they could not stabilize the situation. Just as the Duanmu family was in chaos, countless cold lights suddenly lit up in the night sky from all directions. A large group of black-clothed people appeared out of thin air in the surroundings. They held sharp blades that flickered with cold lights, and they rushed into the Duanmu mansion like a gust of wind and started a massacre. In a short 100 breaths of time, 800 black-clothed people appeared in the surroundings of the Duanmu mansion, and they killed their way into the mansion. These black-clothed people were all elite experts, and they all had the strength of the origin core stage. Moreover, they wore black clothes and masks, and there was no identification on them. They were in teams of 20 people, and they were led by a heaven origin expert. They moved as fast as the wind, and their attacks were ruthless and decisive. With one look, one could tell that they were well-trained assassins who killed people like flies. Moreover, not only did they hold weapons, but they also carried bows and concealed weapons. They were well-equipped. Suddenly, flames lit up everywhere in the Duanmu mansion. The clanging of weapons clashing could be heard continuously, and shrill screams could be heard. Many people were killed on the spot by the black-clothed people who suddenly appeared before they could figure out what was going on, and they fell into a pool of blood. Countless people fell into fear and despair. They screamed crazily and fled in all directions. However, the Duanmu mansion had long been surrounded. Those people who fled in panic had nowhere to run, and they all died under the black-clothed assassins' swords in the end. In a short moment, the Duanmu mansion fell into extreme chaos. The sounds of killing in the mansion shook the heavens. Blood and fire intertwined and shone, and it bloomed into a dark red and shrill bloody light under the night sky. Only those elders and attendants could still maintain their composure. They hurriedly gathered all the guards and martial artists, took out their weapons, and started a chaotic battle with the black-clothed assassins. Even so, the Duanmu family was caught off guard and was ambushed, and they still fell into an absolute disadvantage. Chapter 795. Both sides had only fought for 15 minutes, yet more than 2,000 Duanmu clan members had been killed. Most of them were servants, but there were also more than 300 Duanmu clan disciples. The formerly luxurious and dignified Duanmu clan had instantly become a bloody and miserable slaughterhouse, like purgatory. Corpses were everywhere on the ground, and large patches of dark red blood converged into a small stream that flowed along the ground, emitting a dense smell of blood. The soaring killing intent and splattering blood caused Duanmu clan to be covered in a layer of bloody light. The elders and deacons of the Duanmu clan watched as their guards retreated in defeat and their numbers continuously decreased, and they were filled with grief, indignation, and despair. There was only one thought in their minds, and that was to report to their patriarch and ask the Soul Husbandry Hall to send experts to rescue them. However, they didn't know that their patriarch couldn't even protect himself. And the hall master of the Soul Husbandry Hall had already lost his life a long time ago. In Duanmu clan's above ground, the miserable battle was still playing out. And in the secret room deep underground, the battle between Ji Tianqing and Duanmu Huang had also reached its most miserable state. The two of them had already exchanged over 100 moves, and both of them had exerted their full strength. The previously luxurious secret room had long been blasted into ruins by the aftermath of the battle, and it was filled with holes and cracks. The dark golden light barrier that protected the secret room was also on the verge of collapse from the bombardment, and it was covered with spiderweb-like cracks. It would completely collapse at any moment. Ji Tianqing's white robe was already stained with blood, and the golden wings on his back were slightly dim. His entire body was covered with wounds, and his face was pale. There were still traces of dark red blood at the corner of his mouth. Obviously, Duanmu Huang, who was an arrow at the end of its flight, still possessed extremely valiant combat strength and had heavily injured him. Fortunately, although his injuries were heavy, they didn't affect his battle, and he still retained about 60% of his true essence. Duanmu Huang's appearance was even more miserable, and his injuries were even more miserable to the extreme. He was still bare-chested, and there were several deep wounds on his chest and back that were so deep that bones could be seen, and dark red blood continuously gushed out. Especially the injuries to his soul, which had already accelerated and worsened, causing the strength of his soul to be extremely weak. His strength was constantly depleting, and every time he executed an ultimate attack, he had to gasp for breath violently for a while. Even if the battle ended now and he immediately went into seclusion to recuperate, it would be impossible for him to return to his peak condition. His divine soul was too heavily injured and suffered permanent damage. It was impossible for him to recover. Ji Tianqing had risked serious injuries to fight Duanmu Huang until both sides were injured. He wanted to drag Duanmu Huang down. Only in this way would he have complete confidence in defeating Duanmu Huang and killing him. If he used his trump card right from the start and ended the battle with Duanmu Huang quickly, the risk would be too great. At this point, he had already achieved his goal. Duanmu Huang's strength was almost exhausted. He was at a complete disadvantage and was slowly approaching death. The two of them once again unleashed their most powerful ultimate moves, clashing with each other with all their might. Following a loud boom, the overwhelming five-colored spiritual light exploded and bombarded the dark golden light barrier around the secret chamber. The dark golden light barrier, which was already full of cracks and on the verge of collapse, could no longer withstand such a terrifying attack and instantly shattered. The dark golden light shield exploded into billions of pieces of golden light and flew away in all directions. A shockwave that could destroy the heavens and the earth burst out. Boom! The secret underground chamber was completely destroyed and collapsed on the spot. The earth suddenly caved in. The lofty palace on the ground was also shattered by the shockwave and turned into rubble that sank into the ground. Ji Tianqing and Duanmu Huang charged out of the ground at the same time. They broke through the dust and debris that covered the sky and flew high into the sky. The night sky, which was originally bright with moonlight, was now covered with a layer of dark red and filled with the pungent smell of blood. The surroundings of Duanmu Manor were surrounded by flames that soared into the sky. There were many exquisite and beautiful buildings, as well as many majestic palaces, all of which were burning with raging flames. Most of the servants and guards of the Duanmu family had already been killed. Only a few elders, deacons, and elite guards were left. They risked their lives to escort the disciples of the Duanmu family to break out of the encirclement and escape. However, the black-clothed assassins were determined to eliminate the source of the problem. They would never let them escape, so they launched an intense siege. The brutal killing continued. Corpses were everywhere in the spacious manor. Blood flowed like a river. Screams and wails of agony were constantly heard. Ji Tianqing and Duanmu Huang stood in the air 1,000 meters above the ground. They faced each other from 1,000 meters away and looked down at the battlefield at the same time. Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a cold smile when he saw the Duanmu Manor turned into a purgatory of blood and fire. Hundreds of black-clothed assassins were killing everywhere. Uncle's arrangements are indeed meticulous. 800 elites and more than 40 Heaven Origin stage experts are enough to destroy the defenseless Duanmu Manor. When Duanmu Huang saw the manor turned into ruins, thousands of people slaughtered, and the scene of blood flowing like a river in the manor, he was instantly enraged. Puff! Unparalleled anger and hatred made him spit out a mouthful of blood and almost pass out. Gee, God! Fine! You damned beast! How dare you collude with Cloud Soul Palace and sneak attack my Duanmu Manor? Duanmu Huang roared in grief and indignation. His voice shook the sky and was extremely shrill. When he saw the scene of Duanmu Manor being slaughtered, he had already guessed Ji Tianqing's scheme and plan. Although the 800 black-clothed assassins were wearing masks and there were no identification marks or symbols on their bodies. However, even if Duanmu Huang used his toes to think, he could guess that those assassins were from Cloud Soul Palace. However, he could not believe that Ji Tianqing and Cloud Soul Palace dared to be so arrogant and launch a sneak attack without warning. Could it be that they were so lawless that they dared to look down on the imperial court? Were they not afraid of being exposed and angering the imperial court so that their entire family would be executed? Duanmu Huang could not figure it out. If it were him, he would definitely not have the courage and boldness to personally lead an army to attack Cloud Soul Palace. However, Ji Tianqing and Cloud Soul Palace dared to and had already done it. At this moment, Duanmu Huang finally understood. He thought that his methods were ruthless and decisive and could be called an ambitious person. He did not expect Ji Tianqing to be even more ruthless, arrogant, and unscrupulous than him. The Duanmu Manor was completely defeated. After tonight's battle, even if a few of the Duanmu Manor's people survived, they would be utterly defeated and flee in all directions. The glorious Duanmu Manor of the past was about to vanish into thin air. When he thought of this, Duanmu Huang went completely crazy and lost all rationality. Even if the Duanmu Manor is going to be destroyed, I will drag you all down with me. Little bastard, you will definitely die. Duanmu Huang roared at the top of his lungs and used his final trump card, the green light treasure tree. He held a foot-tall emerald green tree in his left hand and used all of his power to inject it into the green light treasure tree to unleash his ultimate attack. 5-Direction Dragon Slash. Chapter 796. Along with Duanmu Huang's angry roar, the cyan light treasured tree blossomed with dazzling multicolored light. The majestic light condensed into 5 heaven-splitting axes, carrying a blazing white divine soul flame, and slashed at Ji Tianqing from different directions. Each heaven-splitting axis was as big as a small mountain. The dazzling multicolored light and blazing white flame illuminated the dark night sky, and the entire Duanmu Manor was illuminated. The violent and terrifying hurricane and energy sealed off the land within a radius of 10 miles, fiercely suppressing Ji Tianqing, leaving him nowhere to run. However, he had already made up his mind to kill Duanmu Huang as soon as possible, and he didn't think of dodging. When the 5 heaven-splitting axes slashed down from the sky, he raised his left palm without hesitation and urged the power of the red flame primordial fire. Heaven-burning palm. Endless red flame primordial fire gushed out from his magma-like left arm, condensing into a huge flaming palm that was as big as a mountain and fiercely smashed at Duanmu Huang. The dazzling flames that covered the sky and the sun illuminated half of the sky red. After releasing the heaven-burning palm, Ji Tianqing immediately used the seal of mountains and rivers to protect himself. Bang 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 bang. The 5 heaven-splitting axes fiercely hacked at the seal of mountains and rivers, creating a loud noise that shook the 9 heavens. The seal of mountains and rivers exploded with golden light, falling from the night sky and fiercely smashing into Duanmu Manor. A deep crater with a radius of 1,000 meters was smashed into the ground, and endless dust and gravel splashed out. Numerous cracks appeared around the deep crater, and dozens of houses were overturned, collapsing into rubble. At the same time, the huge flaming palm that could destroy heaven and earth also passed through the dark night sky and fiercely smashed into Duanmu Huang. Bang! With a loud, dull noise, Duanmu Huang was blown away on the spot, and blood spurted out from his mouth and nose. Even though he had 3 divine soul Dharma eyes protecting his body, he still couldn't resist the terrifying power of the heaven-burning palm, and was badly injured. However, after flying 10 miles away, he flew back with a murderous look. His body was covered in blood as he stood in the night sky. His long hair danced in the wind, and his entire body was covered in crimson flames. He held the green light treasured tree with both hands and channeled his boundless power into the treasured tree. The green light treasured tree suddenly bloomed with colorful lights, condensing into thousands of colorful light pillars, like a rain of arrows that covered the sky, pouring down on Ji Tianqing. Crumbling 1,000 mountains. Each 5-colored light pillar was 1,000 meters long. Tens of thousands of 5-colored light pillars fell from the sky at the same time, enveloping the entire mountain peak. The entire Duanmu estate, within a radius of a few dozen miles, was enveloped by the 5-colored light pillar. When Ji Tianqing was hunted down by Duanmu Huang, the Duanmu Huang had used this secret technique to turn everything within a radius of 100 miles into a deep crater. Now he used this ultimate move again. Although its power had weakened by countless times, it was still able to turn the entire mountain peak into a pile of ruins. The furious and crazy Duanmu Huang only wanted to turn Ji Tianqing into smithereens. He didn't care about the survival of the Duanmu estate at all. At the critical moment, Ji Tianqing entered the seal of mountains and rivers without hesitation. Boom, 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 boom. The 5-colored light pillars that covered the sky and covered the earth came crashing down, drowning the entire Duanmu estate. The seal of mountains and rivers was once again blasted into the ground, creating a huge crater in the ground and sending dust into the air. Tens of thousands of 5-colored light pillars erupted with a destructive power that destroyed the entire Duanmu estate. Nearly 1,000 houses and palaces collapsed under the bombardment of the 5-colored light pillars, turning into gravel and dust that covered the ground. The ground within a radius of a few dozen miles was also shattered into pieces, filled with deep craters and huge ravines. At that moment, the entire Duanmu estate turned into a sea of 5-colored light, illuminating the area within a radius of 100 miles. Even the Azurewood city, which was 100 miles away from the Duanmu estate, was illuminated by the dazzling brilliance. When the 5-colored light that covered the sky and the sun dispersed, the night sky finally returned to its original darkness. Everything calmed down. The Duanmu estate was completely destroyed. It was completely razed to the ground and turned into ruins that were riddled with holes. The towering palaces, exquisite houses, and a few majestic pagodas of the past were all gone. The martial artists that were fighting fiercely in the Duanmu estate were undoubtedly massacred into a mess. Thousands of Duanmu clan disciples, guards, and servants were blasted into smithereens by the 5-colored light pillars. Not even their bones remained. Of course, there were also over 300 black-clothed assassins who were unable to retreat from the Duanmu estate in time and were killed on the spot. The crazy Duanmu Huang, who had lost his mind, didn't differentiate between friend and foe. He didn't care about the life and death of others. Even the disciples, guards, and servants of the Duanmu clan were blasted into smithereens. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind, and that was to kill Ji Tianqing. Even if he had to die here tonight, he would drag Ji Tianqing down with him. There were 2 people that Duanmu Huang hated the most in his life. One was the 3rd prince who had planted the divine venomous goo in him and made him suffer a fate worse than death. The other was Ji Tianqing. At this moment, the seal of mountains and rivers flew into the sky, and its brilliance became much dimmer. Swoosh! With a flash of brilliance, Ji Tianqing flew out from the seal of mountains and rivers. His breathing was disordered and blood kept flowing out from the corner of his mouth. There were no fatal injuries on his body. He stood high in the sky and stared coldly at Duanmu Huang. He shouted in a deep voice, "Duanmu Huang, you have already lost your humanity and fallen into madness. When you go crazy, you even want to kill your brothers, sisters, nephews, and descendants. What's the difference between you and a devil?" Blood-red flames were burning all over Duanmu Huang's body. Blood was flowing out from his only eye, and it had turned completely red. His pupil was also burning with blood-red flames. At this moment, he looked no different from a devil. His only eye had lost its ability to see. He locked onto Ji Tianqing's aura with his divine soul and roared angrily, "Little bastard, you have no right to criticize me. All of this was caused by you. Everyone died because of you. You are the cruelest and most vicious executioner. You are unreasonable. You have already gone crazy." Ji Tianqing looked at him indifferently and silently opened the third eye on his forehead. That was his thunder spiritual eye. It was a golden eye with a blue pupil. The power of thunder that could destroy the world was brewing in it. Ji Tianqing looked at Duanmu Huang and shouted in a cold and majestic voice, "Thunder!" Kaboom! The power of thunder that had been accumulated in the thunder spiritual eye was released in an instant. It condensed into a 10-meter-long thunder light pillar and blasted toward Duanmu Huang. At that moment, the blue thunder light pierced through the night sky. It was like the wrath of the heavens that could destroy the world. Before Duanmu Huang could react, he was hit by the thunder light pillar. Bang! In the deafening sound, his figure was drowned by the blue thunder light. His whole body was wrapped in thunder and lightning. He fell miserably from the night sky and crashed into the ruins below. Kaboom! A huge crater was suddenly blasted out of the desolated ruins. Dust and dirt splashed out in all directions. Duanmu Huang's body was charred like charcoal. Black smoke rose in spirals. He lay at the bottom of the crater in a sorry state and kept twitching. Chapter 797. Duanmu Huang's injuries were extremely severe. One of his 3 damaged Divine Soul Dharma eyes had also been destroyed by the lightning beam. The remaining 2 Divine Soul Dharma eyes flickered with white light. His aura was extremely weak. He struggled to climb out of the deep pit. His body trembled and countless black powder fell from his body. That was his flesh and blood that had been charred by the lightning and turned into powder. He stood in the deep pit with his body bent. He held the glowing green tree with both hands and desperately absorbed the power of the tree to heal his injuries. At this moment, Ji Tianqing caught up again and flew above the deep pit. He looked down at Duanmu Huang, who was in the pit, and shouted with an indifferent expression, "Duanmu Huang, stop resisting. It's all over now." As soon as he finished speaking, a black light surged out of his palm. A black bell appeared out of thin air. As he cast a spell, he channeled a vast amount of power into the bell. The black bell immediately turned into an ancient bell the size of a house. The dark and cold ancient bell exuded a mysterious and cold aura. It contained a terrifying and peerless power. "Soul-subduing kill," Ji Tianqing shouted angrily. He formed a mysterious spell with both hands and pointed at Duanmu Huang in the deep pit. Instantly, the dark and cold ancient bell turned into a dark ray of death light and pressed down on Duanmu Huang. Duanmu Huang felt a familiar aura descend. He looked up at the night sky and saw a huge, ancient bell descending from the sky. When he saw the ancient bell, his expression changed drastically. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. "Soul-reaping bell? Why is it in your hands?" "It's Yun Zhongqi. It must be him. He gave you the soul-reaping bell." Duanmu Huang was stunned for a moment. He immediately understood. He knew that Luo's assassination attempt had failed. His identity had been exposed, and the soul-reaping bell had fallen into Yun Zhongqi's hands. Now, the soul-reaping bell was in Ji Tianqing's hands. He was skillfully controlling and using it. If Yun Zhongqi hadn't given the soul-reaping bell to Ji Tianqing, who else could it have been? Even though Duanmu Huang understood the twists and turns of the story, he was filled with rage and murderous intent. However, the soul-reaping bell had already slammed down. It released an icy cold light that firmly suppressed his soul. "You want to kill me? Dream on." Duanmu Huang roared at the top of his lungs. He channeled all his magical energy into the green light treasure tree without a care for anything else. The cyan light treasure tree grew 1,000 times larger with a whoosh sound, becoming a towering tree over 10 zhang tall. It blossomed with a cyan light that blotted out the sky as it charged towards the soul-reaping bell. Boom! The soul-reaping bell and the green light treasure tree collided with each other, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. The incomparably violent strength chi instantly exploded, expanding the deep pit by more than 10 times. The soul-suppressing power released by the soul-reaping bell blasted Duanmu Huang to the ground. His physical body was twisted like a fried dough twist, and his soul was also severely injured. He lay at the bottom of the deep pit, covered by countless clouds of dust. His body twitched violently, and he couldn't get up for a long time. However, at the same time that the green light treasure tree was sent flying, it also released more than 36,000 five-colored light swords that rained down on Ji Tianqing like a rain of arrows. This was Duanmu Huang's last resort. The green light treasure tree also violently released its strongest power. The five-colored light swords that blotted out the sky had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Each of the light swords was 10 meters long, and their power was immense and terrifying. They could flatten a small mountain with one sword. The 36,000 light swords shot out at the same time, covering a radius of dozens of miles. Ji Tianqing had nowhere to hide and was about to be blasted into pieces. At this critical moment, he activated the power of the seal of mountains and rivers and the Kenshin battle robe to protect himself. Boom, boom, boom. The seal of mountains and rivers trembled under the bombardment, and cracks appeared on it. Soon its power was depleted. The wings formed by the Kenshin battle robe also flashed with golden light from the bombardment, and finally became silent and dim. The battle robe could no longer maintain its winged form, and retracted back into Ji Tianqing's body. Therefore, Ji Tianqing was hit by countless light swords. He was sent flying dozens of miles away on the spot, and fell to the edge of the ruins, crashing into the ground with a loud bang. A deep pit was formed on the ground, and he fell to the bottom of the pit, covered in blood, and was buried by countless clouds of dust. His long hair was draped over his shoulders, and his white robe was soaked in blood. His entire body was covered in blood. He was severely injured, with at least 160 sword wounds from head to toe. There was almost no intact skin on his body. If he was an ordinary Divine Prime expert, he would have been ground into minced meat. However, Ji Tianqing was different. He had cultivated the ultimate sword body, and his physical defense had reached the peak of the Divine Prime level. Moreover, the seal of mountains and rivers and the Kenshin battle robe had helped him to block most of the power. Therefore, he withstood the final attack of the green light treasured tree. Although his physical body was severely injured, it did not shatter into pieces. This was the strength of the sword Heart Dao. Using the physical body as the sword embryo, it was like forging a sword, and finally, the physical body was tempered into the ultimate sword body. In terms of physical defense, strength, and speed, Ji Tianqing was absolutely invincible within the Divine Prime level. Phew! The power of the Dharma treasure is indeed strong. Ji Tianqing struggled to climb out of the mound, and the piercing pain made him groan in pain. Although he was bleeding profusely, his blood had mixed with the mud to form a paste. However, he had the Kenshin bloodline and the ultimate sword body. His physical body's self-healing ability was very abnormal. Moreover, he had cultivated the green wood spiritual body. When he silently cultivated, his body shone with a dark green light, and the wounds all over his body immediately healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a short time, his wounds were all healed, and the blood stopped flowing. Therefore, he flew out of the deep pit into the dark night sky and towards the direction of the Duanmu Huang. As he flew in the sky, he saw the scene at the peak of the mountain clearly. The mountain peak within a radius of dozens of miles had been completely turned into ruins, and not even a blade of grass could be seen. There were still a few hundred survivors from the Duanmu family, and they were running down the mountain in horror. More than 300 assassins in black were still chasing after them with all their might. Everyone was scattered halfway up the mountain and at the foot of the mountain, and they were fighting with all their might. The battle was coming to an end, and the Duanmu mansion was no more. 100 miles away, the Greenwood city was also alarmed. Many powerful cultivators were flying across the night sky, and they were rushing over at the speed of light. I can't delay any longer. I have to kill the Duanmu Huang immediately and leave as soon as possible. This thought flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind, and his body emitted a strong killing intent. Swoosh! He flew to the top of a deep pit and looked down at the Duanmu Huang at the bottom of the deep pit. The Duanmu Huang was still lying at the bottom of the pit, struggling on the verge of death. The green light treasured tree was floating beside him, and it constantly emitted a dim green light to heal his wounds. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing did not hesitate any longer. He immediately activated his lifetime's worth of cultivation and used his ultimate killing move. Sword of Judgment. He activated the sword embryo in his body, and it turned into a giant golden sword with a length of 20 meters. It had a pair of golden wings, and it descended from the sky to attack the Duanmu Huang. Chapter 798. When Ji Tianqing used the Sword of Judgment, he also used the soul-reaping bell. He wanted to kill Duanmu Huang completely. He knew very well that even if a transcendent in the soul refinement realm had their physical body destroyed, their soul would still be able to survive. Only when both the physical body and soul were destroyed could one be considered to have truly died. Bam! With a deafening sound, the Sword of Judgment fell from the sky and instantly hit Duanmu Huang. The dying Duanmu Huang could not dodge at all. His physical body was instantly smashed into pieces and exploded into powder that drifted into the deep pit. His physical body had been destroyed, but he still had 2 soul Dharma eyes left. If these 2 soul Dharma eyes had escaped, Duanmu Huang would have been able to take over another body and cultivate again, returning to his peak in 100 years. However, the soul-reaping bell fell from the sky again, carrying the power to destroy everything as it ruthlessly struck the 2 soul Dharma eyes. Kaboom! Duanmu Huang's 2 soul Dharma eyes were instantly destroyed by the soul-reaping bell. They collapsed into white light that filled the sky and dissipated between heaven and earth. The deafening sound and the dazzling white light only dissipated after a long time. A powerful soul refinement realm cultivator of a generation, the helmsman of an ancient family, Duanmu Huang, was completely annihilated just like that. He had completely fallen. With Duanmu Huang's death, the Duanmu family was considered to have been destroyed. Even though some of the Duanmu clan's members had managed to escape, many of their descendants and heirs were still in Xianwu City or their various properties. They had all managed to escape tonight's calamity. However, these scattered Duanmu family members were all people who did not amount to anything and were not a cause for concern. Without a transcendent as a leader, the remaining Duanmu family members were like a sheet of loose sand. They had no right to take revenge on Ji Tianqing and Cloud Soul Palace. Moreover, Ji Tianqing believed that after the Duanmu family was destroyed, Cloud Soul Palace and the other major forces in Middle State would definitely not let the remaining members of the Duanmu family off. They would definitely eliminate them from the roots. His goal was only to kill Duanmu Huang. There was no need for him to worry about the rest. Cloud Soul Palace would naturally take care of it. Now that Duanmu Huang was dead, he had no more worries. Although he had exhausted all of his strength and was in a miserable state, he was in an extremely sorry state. However, before the experts of the Greenwood City arrived, he quietly left the battlefield and disappeared into the night. Not long after, more than 10 dazzling 5-colored streamers flew over from the direction of the Greenwood City and arrived in the sky above the ruins. These people were all experts of the Azurewood City, and basically all of them were inextricably linked to the Duanmu family. Most of them were experts under the Duanmu clan, and a small number of them had business dealings with the Duanmu clan. Previously, everyone had stayed in Azurewood City, doing their own things. Some were having fun, some were cultivating in seclusion, and some were sleeping soundly. When they noticed the commotion in Duanmu Mansion and saw the dazzling true essence brilliance, they realized that there were experts fighting. However, the experts hesitated for a long time and did not dare to rashly come to investigate. In their opinion, the Duanmu clan was one of the 3 great 1,000 ancient aristocratic families, and they were extremely powerful. Who would dare to cause trouble in the Duanmu clan? Even if there were some ignorant people who dared to cause trouble in the Duanmu mansion, they would be quickly killed. However, as time passed, the commotion in the Duanmu mansion did not calm down. Instead, it became more and more intense, and it became even more earth-shattering. When Duanmu Huang used his ultimate move and destroyed the entire Duanmu mansion, the entire Azurewood City was awakened. Many experts finally could not suppress the doubts in their hearts and rushed over to check the situation. Unfortunately, when they arrived at the Duanmu mansion, the battle had already ended. All they could see was a mess of ruins. The Duanmu mansion, which used to be glorious and prosperous, had disappeared. The ground was riddled with holes, and it was filled with huge gullies and cracks. Seeing this scene, all the experts present were dumbfounded. They were so shocked that they were dumbfounded. Countless people seemed to have been petrified. Their bodies stiffened as they stood rooted to the ground, and they stared at the ruins on the mountain peak. Even though they had seen it with their own eyes, they did not dare to believe their eyes. They would rather believe that the sun rose from the west than accept the fact that the Duanmu mansion had been razed to the ground and turned into ruins overnight. This was simply a bolt from the blue. It was the most shocking event in history. After a long time, the experts finally regained their senses. Instantly, they burst into intense discussions and exclamations. "Oh my God! How could this be? The Duanmu mansion has been razed to the ground? I simply do not dare to believe my eyes. Is this real? Oh my God! An ancient aristocratic family. It's gone just like that? Is this a joke? A mansion with a radius of dozens of miles, thousands of people, and so many experts are all gone just like that? Who did this? How strong must the expert be to have such a terrifying power? It's over. The Duanmu family is completely finished. In the future, only 2 of the 3 aristocratic families are left. This is definitely not something that an expert can do. It is definitely done by a powerful force that surpasses the Duanmu family. As time passed, more and more experts rushed to the ruins of the Duanmu mansion to check out the situation. Almost everyone was dumbstruck and petrified on the spot when they saw the Duanmu mansion in ruins. No one dared to believe that this was real. After being stunned for a long time, they finally regained their senses. Then, all kinds of exclamations and roars erupted. Unknowingly, a night had passed and the sky was about to brighten. A new day had arrived. The power structure of the central continent had undergone earth-shaking changes. The news of the Duanmu family's destruction and the mansion's destruction spread from Greenwood City and swept through the central continent like a gale. Greenwood City was shocked. Hundreds of thousands of citizens were indescribably terrified and panicked. There were even many descendants and subordinates of the Duanmu family who fled Greenwood City in a panic, afraid that they would be affected by this disaster. In a short 2 days, the news had spread throughout the central continent. Central Continent City and countless rich and powerful influences all learned of this sensational, world-shocking news. Almost everyone thought that they had heard wrongly when they heard this news. Their faces were filled with astonishment. When the other party confidently told them that the Duanmu family had indeed been destroyed, they were all stunned. The Duanmu family that had been passed down for thousands of years had been destroyed overnight. The family head, Duanmu Huang, had also mysteriously disappeared. No one knew if he was alive or dead. The most terrifying thing was that no one knew who the culprit behind the destruction of the Duanmu family was. Was it some kind of omnipotent expert? Or was it some powerful superforce? No one knew the answer. Similar news spread wantonly around the central continent city and set off a perilous wave among the citizens of various races. Everyone discussed animatedly, and all of them were making wild guesses. Exactly who was it that possessed such shocking ability and courage? There were even countless experts who were guessing. Could it be a supreme martial artist of the primordial soul realm who had made a move? If not, how could the huge Duanmu family, which had a soul refinement realm expert, be destroyed overnight? The 4th update has been delivered, and there are 8 more chapters today. You're tuning in to the Blee Maze Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.